Youth leadership debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause a transformed Nigeria. Its goal is to provide capacity building to young people across tertiary institutions and support them to critically evaluate information, advocate from the point of knowledge, and to collectively shape their future of Nigeria. The conversations led on the platform of the youth leadership debate goes on to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest, was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the youth leadership development programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development. The Youth Leadership Debate is a program that provides the platform for young people to use their voices and knowledge to drive conversations for national development. It is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, implemented by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. The 2022 Youth Leadership Debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause a transformed Nigeria. Its goal is to provide capacity building to young people across tertiary institutions and support them to critically evaluate information, advocate from the point of knowledge, and to collectively shape their future of Nigeria. The conversations led on the platform of the youth leadership debate goes on to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest, was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the youth leadership development programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development. The Youth Leadership Debate is a program that provides the platform for young people to use their voices and knowledge to drive conversations for national development. It is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, implemented by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. The 2022 Youth Leadership Debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause a transformed Nigeria. Its goal is to provide capacity building to young people across tertiary institutions and support them to critically evaluate information, advocate from the point of knowledge, and to collectively shape their future of Nigeria. The conversations led on the platform of the youth leadership debate goes on to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the Youth Leadership Development Programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development. The Youth Leadership Debate is a program that provides the platform for young people to use their voices and knowledge to drive conversations for national development. It is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, implemented by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. The 2022 Youth Leadership Debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause a transformed Nigeria. Its goal is to provide capacity building to young people across tertiary institutions and support them to critically evaluate information, advocate from the point of knowledge, and to collectively shape their future of Nigeria. The conversations led on the platform of the Youth Leadership Debate goes on to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the Youth Leadership Development Programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development. The Youth Leadership Debate is a program that provides the platform for young people to use their voices and knowledge to drive conversations for national development. It is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, implemented by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. The 2022 Youth Leadership Debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause a transformed Nigeria. Its goal is to provide capacity building to young people across tertiary institutions and support them to critically evaluate information, advocate from the point of knowledge, and to collectively shape their future of Nigeria. The conversations led on the platform of the Youth Leadership Debate goes on to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the Youth Leadership Development Programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development. The Youth Leadership Debate is a program that provides the platform for young people to use their voices and knowledge to drive conversations for national development. It is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, implemented by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. The 2022 Youth Leadership Debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause a transformed Nigeria. Its goal is to provide capacity building to young people across tertiary institutions and support them to critically evaluate information, advocate from the point of knowledge, and to collectively shape their future of Nigeria. The conversations led on the platform of the Youth Leadership Debate goes on to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest, was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the Youth Leadership Development Programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development. The Youth Leadership Debate is a program that provides the platform for young people to use their voices and knowledge to drive conversations for national development. It is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, implemented by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. The 2022 Youth Leadership Debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause a transformed Nigeria. Its goal is to provide capacity building to young people across tertiary institutions and support them to critically evaluate information, advocate from the point of knowledge, and to collectively shape their future of Nigeria. The conversations led on the platform of the Youth Leadership Debate goes on to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest, was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the Youth Leadership Development Programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development. The Youth Leadership Debate is a program that provides the platform for young people to use their voices and knowledge to drive conversations for national development. It is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, implemented by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. The 2022 Youth Leadership Debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause a transformed Nigeria. Its goal is to provide capacity building to young people across tertiary institutions and support them to create.
Thank you all for being here this morning. My name is Ijoma Kalu. I'm a program officer at Leap Africa, and I am one of the program officers on the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, which is a joint initiative by MacArthur Foundation, Ford Foundation, and Leap Africa. These are our primary sponsors for the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund. We have a retinue of other partners and sponsors who are working with us on the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund. We're here today for the Youth Leadership Debates competition, the quarterfinal stage of the competition. For those who do not know, the Youth Leadership Debates competition was put together as part of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund to speak to or to allow young people to speak to problems that concern them, national issues that are, primary conversations in mainstream media. But the thing is, we are allowing young people to speak to these problems in an intelligent manner, in an informed manner, having done extensive research, which is why it's different from the conversations that go on Twitter, conversations that go on Instagram or on social media. We have created this program as a platform to allow people to have the background knowledge of what they're talking about and to step up on this podium to educate others on these issues. Once again, you're very welcome. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our judges here today, who I will be introducing very shortly. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of our students from Lagos State University. We are currently live on the Lagos State University campus, or JAW. I'd like to say a very big thank you to the Lagos State University Students Union Executive Council for making it a possibility for us to be here. I'd also like to say thank you to the administration of the Lagos State University and the Directorate of the Sustainable Development Goals of Lagos State University campus. These groups of people have made it possible for us to be here and to be using the campus grounds for this competition. Once again, please, a round of applause to the people I have mentioned. And to the great last whites, please, a round of applause for yourselves. I'll say that again, and then you tell me if I'm correct, if that's the way you like to be addressed. Great last whites. Great last whites. Thank you for being here. Without further ado, I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of our audience, our online audience. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're just joining, you are live on the Youth Leadership Debates competition quarterfinal stage. My name is Ijoma Kalu, Program Officer at Leap Africa. I'll now go to my judges. We have in the room today Mr. Olaolu Akogun, who is the Program Manager at Junior Achievers Nigeria. Mr. Akogun, thank you so much for being here. Thank you. We have Mr. Aziz Salau, we have Barrister Oluwaseun Okweyemi. Barrister Oluwaseun Okweyemi is an international tax consultant. Thank you. We have Mr. Aziz Salau, who is the founder of Community Action for Food Security. Thank you so much, Mr. Aziz, for being here with us. I'd like to say to our audience that we have gone through the length and breadth of the earth to ensure that we have judges who are well aware and conversant with the conversations that we'll be having in the room today. So please do not fear, do not fret. They will be giving their unbiased judgments to the debate happening here today. And for the round of these debates, we are discussing the theme, I Go Yarn, activating youth voices for change. As we've said, we want a situation where young people are speaking to the issues that concern them, till the necessary quarters hear us and the right policies are made and the right changes are made to how our country is being run or to how we are ideating the future that we want for ourselves. So I will now go ahead to introduce our debaters in the room today. We have debaters from Veritas University, debaters from the University of Ibadan. Please give yourselves a round of applause, thank you. We have debaters from the University of Lagos, University of Benin, the University of Ilorin, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Obafemi Awolowo University, and Bayes University. For the avoidance of doubt, and to ensure that all voices are heard and everyone is acknowledged appropriately, I would like to call on the names of the representatives from these schools. So please, when you hear, and for the audience, if there's somebody in particular that you're supporting, please go ahead to give them a shout out on our YouTube platform. For Bayes University, we have Ms. Mesomachi Erugo. Please, a round of applause for Ms. Mesoma. We also have Mr. Divine Marizu. A round of applause for him, please. And representing Veritas University, we have Ms. Priska Iwendi and Ms. Abba Divine Enekole. For the University of Ibadan, we have Ms. Yusuf Aisha and Mr. Abdul Habib Akorede. For the University of Benin, we have Ms. Victoria Oluwatosin Toluwaloju and Mr. Ibinosa Samuel Etinosa. All the way from the Obafemi Awolowo University, we have Miss Adebanjo Demilade and Miss Adeyemi Taiwo. From the University of Ilorin, we have Miss Oloroyomi Adebimpe Covenant and Miss Ayondele Peace. From the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi, we have Miss Florence Abizun Oga and Miss Gift Umoru. Finally, we have from the University of Lagos, Miss Ememobong Ikwe and Miss Eniola Oni. Audience and judges, it might interest you to know, and if you look in the room, you'll see that there are more women, which brings us to a question. Is it that it's just women who are concerned about how our country is going? Among the debaters, we have 13 women and 3 men. It speaks a lot to where we are as a country, to see that when there are conversations regarding nation building, we have more women who are interested in speaking, as we are seeing here. However, in the actual policy making, it seems to be the reverse. However, we know that changes will be made starting from this room, and I'm urging the men in the room, both debaters and audience, and our audience online as well, please do better. Let's talk about the Nigeria that we want together. And I want to say a great shout out to all the women who have put themselves forward to discuss Nigeria's issues. Without further ado, it's 11:39, and we'll be going right into it. Each debate round is going to take a total of 20 minutes. And we have 4 rounds for the quarterfinal stage of this competition. Now, debaters, I would like to read or remind you of the rules of engagement. The first proposing speaker has 5 minutes to introduce motions, define key terms, set burdens, and establish mechanisms and models if needed, and offer substantive arguments in support of their motion. After that, the first speaker from the other side, the supporting or the opposing side rather, so the first speaker from the opposing side has 5 minutes, and the speaker from the supporting side also has 5 minutes to establish burdens in support or in opposition of their motions. Second speakers have 3 minutes apiece to support the arguments laid out by their first speakers. And after the first and second speakers from both parties have gone through, there will be a 30 minutes cross-examination round, 30 seconds cross-examination rounds, where debaters can ask questions, clarifying questions from their opposition, or point out faulty arguments that have been made by their opposition. Now, there are penalties if the 5 minutes or the 3 minutes or the 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and 30 seconds that you are allotted, if you go past it, there's a penalty of -1 point. There is also a penalty for inappropriate conduct, objectionable language, severe personal attack on another debater, falsified evidence if proven false by your opponents or by the judges, irrelevancies, unfair tactics, and unfamiliarity with any of the rules that have been laid here today or those that have been laid prior to today's rounds. I also like to remind the judges and the audience that the debaters have gone through rigorous training, including coaching sessions with professionals in the field, which they have for the topics that they have been assigned, and the 7 thematic areas of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund. So we are assuming that they are very well aware of the topics that they have been given. So we will not be. Round 1, we have debaters from Veritas University supporting the motion. Nigeria should adopt quota system instead of affirmative action to ensure youth and women representation in politics in Nigeria. To oppose this motion will be the team from the University of Ibadan. So, are we ready? Guys, are we ready? Are we ready to hear the arguments? No. The sound in the room is too poor. Are we ready to hear the arguments? Veritas University, are you ready? Veritas University, are you ready? All right. So I would like to call on the first speaker from Veritas University to take the floor. I believe that is Ms. Divine Abba Enekole.
Evaluate information, advocate from the point of knowledge, and to collectively shape their future of Nigeria. The conversations led on the platform of the Youth Leadership Debate goes on to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest, was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the Youth Leadership Development Programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development. The Youth Leadership Debate is a program that provides the platform for young people to use their voices and knowledge to drive conversations for national development. It is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, implemented by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. The 2022 Youth Leadership Debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause a transformed Nigeria. Its goal is to provide capacity building to young people across tertiary institutions and support them to critically evaluate information, advocate from the point of knowledge, and to collectively shape their future of Nigeria. The conversations led on the platform of the Youth Leadership Debate goes on to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest, was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the Youth Leadership Development Programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development. The Youth Leadership Debate is a program that provides the platform for young people to use their voices and knowledge to drive conversations for national development. It is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, implemented by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. The 2022 Youth Leadership Debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause a transformed Nigeria. Its goal is to provide capacity building to young people across tertiary institutions and support them to critically evaluate information, advocate from the point of knowledge, and to collectively shape their future of Nigeria. The conversations led on the platform of the Youth Leadership Debate goes on to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest, was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the Youth Leadership Development Programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development. The Youth Leadership Debate is a program that provides the platform for young people to use their voices and knowledge to drive conversations for national development. It is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, implemented by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. The 2022 Youth Leadership Debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause
5 minutes. Thank you.
Panel, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to draw your attention to a pressing matter that strikes at the heart of our democracy: the underrepresentation of women and youth in the political landscape of Nigeria. Today, we stand united in recognizing a systematic issue that stifles the voices and aspirations of a significant portion of our population. According to World Bank collection of indicators, women constitute approximately 49.4% of the population, yet their representation in our political sphere remains glaringly disproportionate. As of the last national election, only 5.8% of the National Assembly seats were held by women. The Business Day also tells us something interesting, that out of 109 senators, we have just 3 female senators. Similarly, our vibrant youth, representing about 60% of our population, face same barriers that limit their meaningful participation in Nigeria. Imagine the untapped potential and the vast pool of ideas within the minds of women and youths. These underrepresented demographics are hidden. We envision a Nigeria where women and youths can stand shoulder to shoulder with their male counterparts, actively shaping our policies and driving our nation towards progress and prosperity. Let us cast our gaze beyond our borders, drawing inspiration from countries that has embraced inclusivity through the quota system. According to World Bank, Rwanda, a country with a history scarred by conflict, has emerged as a beacon of hope, with a parliament boasting with 61.3% female representation. Rwanda showcases the transformative power of women in politics, redefining the trajectory of a nation. As we advocate for quotas to ensure equal participation, we look forward to a Nigeria where the voices of women and youth reverberate our legislative chambers and shaping our policies. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Divine Abba, and a colleague from Veritas University, and I'm extremely proud to stand here before you to support the quota system as the best credible way to solve this issue. So first thing we need to agree in today's debate, a concession, is the fact that quota system and affirmative action are concerned about underrepresentation. But my burden is to prove to you where the quota system covers the loophole better. So let's do a brief definition of terms. According to Obielumani in the Journal of Research in National Development, quota system is any selection method for employment, school admission, among others, whereby a certain set of percentage of those selected must be given based on ethnic or racial background. Now, to affirmative action, according to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, defines affirmative action as positive steps taken to increase representation of women and minorities in area of employment, education, culture, from which they have been historically excluded. Now, to my first point. Panel. Quota system is specific and mandatory in terms of the numbers, and it is also faster. The quota system is very specific and handles this problem better. How? Historically, women and youths were not given a fair place in politics. We have young people and women doing great things in entertainment, in education, in medicine. So who told us that the hands of these women and youths are also too feeble to handle politics at the same time? We need to tackle the societal and cultural norm factors by creating a system that is absolutely mandatory and specific, so much that it is impossible to exclude these people. At the end of the day, what does this look like? It means that ministerial appointments, party politics, the National House of Assembly are given a defined percentage that women and youth have to occupy. So whether you think that youth are lazy or women should only be in the kitchen, there is no space for individual biases to be imposed at the end of the day. Why? Because there is a legal framework saying, women, there is a place for you at the table. Nigerian youth, you can now come into the corridors of power, and it is mandatory and it is specific. So let's touch a bit of statistics to prove to you why this works. According to the European Institute for Gender Equality, the proportion of women members of parliament grows 3 times faster in countries with quotas than countries without quotas. 11 member states of the European Union have legislative gender quotas for parliamentary election. These countries have increased their women in parliament. Similar similar thing happens in Latin America. According to the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, the fast track has resulted in a numerical jump in women's representation in a relatively short space of time, from 19% to 55%. But why does this number even matter in today's debate? What is the impact of statistics? One of the metrics to measure how successful a policy can be, which is what the proposition and opposition would agree with me, is that how you know a policy is likely to work is by checking its impact in other places. And we see in Latin America, in Europe, where diversity was an issue, this brought a numerical increase in the representation of women and youth. What does this do, panel? It leads to a mandate that these people must eventually get to power, which is something affirmative action does not promise us, right? Because they take a lot of gradual processes. But with quota system, we are saying this is a mandate. Whatever it would take, these people have a place in government, which means that party politics would have to adjust, ministerial appointments would have to adjust, because the most important thing in today's debate is that at the end, we bring these young people, we bring these women to become major decision makers in politics. Now, what does this do for you? Why is numerical increase even important? Because you might be thinking that, oh, if you increase them, what really happens at the end of the day? What happens at the end of the day is that we are breaking the barrier forcefully, not gradually. It means that youth in Nigeria can now point to at least 20, 30 youth in politics that inspire them to want to go into politics. Women can point to 50, 70 women in politics that inspire them to want to be in politics. Affirmative action does not promise this. It wants a gradual process, a broad process, but with the kind of factors that lead to this underrepresentation. We think that the quota system makes it faster and it makes it specific. The thing about number is this: there is no how there will be a numerical increase of women and we will not have diversity of ideas. When we have increase in number of women and youth, it means that we have less things like discriminatory policies, policies that are not empathetic enough. That is why we need more numbers of them in the government. And what quota system does is that it promises you both numerical increase, at the same time quality representation. Secondly, the proposition. So panel, I am very proud to propose this motion because I proved to you that we have quality representation, we have numerical increase, and at the end of the day, it impacts how women and youth can participate in politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Veritas University. The first speaker from Veritas University has done very well to substantiate their points in favor of quota system in Nigeria. I'd like to remind the debaters, the first speaker has only 5 minutes. And if you go beyond that time, you risk losing 1 point for your team. Please endeavor to stick to the time given. On that note, I'd like to call the first speaker. Where's my paper? I'd like to call the first speaker from the University of Ibadan for their opening arguments. Please, a round of applause. Thank you.
According to the National Bureau of Statistics, 49.5% of everybody in Nigeria is a woman. Statistical reports by almost 70% of everybody in this country is a youth. The problem now is that in this same country, only 157 women have ever been elected into the National Assembly since 1999, as compared to the 2,657 men within the same time frame, as reported by the Center for Democracy and Development. It gets more interesting for the youth. Data Fight, a research and data analytics organization, revealed that of the 415 candidates that competed in the governorship election, the last election in 2023, only 64 of them were between the ages of 35 and 40. Now, one thing is clear. My opponents and I agree that there is a gross underrepresentation of women and youth in Nigerian politics. Where we disagree is on the solution. They argue for quota system, which is, well, good. But there is a better option. affirmative action. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy defines affirmative action as positive steps taken to increase representation of women or minorities in places like employment, education, and culture from which they have been traditionally excluded. Let me put this in context. Affirmative action is what happens when the government decides to reduce tuition fees for individuals of a particular region that has been traditionally less educated. Now that this is clear, what are our arguments? Our first argument goes to the root of today's problem, which is that one of the major problems facing youth and women's participation in Nigerian politics is financial incapacity, which quota system cannot solve. Everybody will agree with me. The electoral cost in Nigeria is astronomical, effectively shutting out people with lack of access to resources. But it's not hard to understand. For one, there is a gender pay gap where we have women working in similar roles as men getting paid less than these men. The World Economic Forum supports this when they stated that the pay gap in Nigeria is about 32.7%. It gets even more interesting for the youth as they cannot compete at all. Most of them are still in school due to incessant strike actions or still trying to establish their career. Now, quota systems try to create a solution where you just put these people there because you want to fill a number. But we believe that this becomes a problem because you can have people that are not ready for these roles being put into this position. Affirmative action presents a stronger argument when we go to the root of this problem and do what? Improve financial access to reduce these barriers. We have real-life examples. For instance, in the just concluded election, we have some political parties decided to reduce the nomination forms for women or even cancelling them totally. As the International Center for Investigative Reporting reported in an article titled 2023, APC exempt female candidates from paying for nomination forms. So what we see is that this may be a long process, but it's definitely a step in the right direction towards ensuring representation for women and youth in Nigeria. Our second argument is that affirmative action ensures better quality, greater quality for these people than quota systems. How? In affirmative action, the primary criteria is qualification, not a minority identification. So a woman that gets a free nomination form does not automatically win the election because she's a woman in a male-dominated world. She wins the election because she's able to convince the voters that she's better than male competitors for that field. But what do we have from affirmative, from quota system? We have a situation where some countries actually impose penalties on political parties that do not meet their quota for gender representation. I'll give you a real-life example. In 2012, the Republic of Ireland legislated that a requirement of political parties having at least 30% of their candidates from both sexes, or they lose half of their campaign funds. Now, what does this do? And this is according to a journal, an article in the International Journal titled "Gender Quota Legislation Passes All Straits on Retras." And what does this do? The impact is that it forces these political parties to fit unqualified candidates when they are no longer qualified candidates and they have to meet their quotas. Finally, our final argument for the opening speech in today's debate, judges and ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that affirmative action provides an holistic approach to political participation. How? You see, political participation goes beyond filling slots and numbers. It goes beyond just putting people contesting for political positions. It goes to include things like actually voting in the election, registering and getting your voter's card, participating in discussions about politics. As I reported in an article in the International Journal of Political Sciences and Judges, this is titled Politics and Participation. Why is this important? It's important because we need to understand that affirmative action provides a more robust mechanism where we are not just focusing on the numbers, which is what quota system is all about. It is only facing a fraction of the problem, leaving the rest untended. Affirmative action says what? Well, we can give quotas to marginalized groups, but we can't do more. We can give priority to youth and women when we are expanding party memberships. We can give priority to these people when we are creating committees for policy reviews and so on. So finally, ladies and gentlemen, the proposition to this debate have claimed that, quota system is faster and affirmative action is takes more time and things like it does not guarantee this representation. But the problem is that it's irrelevant in today's debate. All of these options, including quota system, do not aim to solve these problems overnight. What do? They want a gradual representation of these underrepresented people, and we have shown you with real-life examples that affirmative action does this better. And for this reason, we are very proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you, first speaker from the University of Ibadan. For those who are just joining us, we are in the first round of the Youth Leadership Debates Competition quarterfinal stage, and we have debaters from Veritas University and the University of Ibadan. They're debating the motion, Nigeria should adopt quota system instead of affirmative action to ensure youth and women representation in politics in Nigeria. We have now heard from the first speakers from both parties, and I'd like to go ahead to call on the second speaker from the Veritas University, Ms. Priska Iwendi. Priska, you have the floor, and you have 3 minutes. I'll let you know when your time starts.
Resolved. We stand at crossroads in Nigeria's politics and democracy, where we ask an important question: how can we improve the representation of women and youth in politics? Panelist, timekeeper, I am Priska Iwendi, and I affirm this resolution. I will begin by refuting my opponent's point. She talks about the problem of finances. Panel, realize that the major target is for them to get into the power. Panel, you agree with me that even after educating people, it is still not a guarantee that they will definitely be decision makers. So with quota system, we ensure that people can compete competently, knowing that there is a space for them. Another argument they talked about is competence. It is so absurd for them to talk about competence because we have competent women that have actually created a change. The reason why this competency has not been shown forth is because of the lack of inclusivity. That is why you see most of these competent women holding high offices in foreign states. We have the likes of Okonjo Iweala, and Okonjo Iweala served as 2 times Minister of Finance, according to World Bank, now Director General of the World Trade Organization, where there is a better inclusivity, and this can be confirmed from the World Trade Organization website. For the past 17 years after the 35% affirmative action, the policy has not changed the trajectory of political system. So if they have not created a change within the 17 years, so why don't we choose a better alternative, which is adopting the quota system? However, we agree the affirmative action and quota system have very similar gender, but here's why Nigeria should adopt quota. My first point: improved representation. Quota system ensures representation by setting quotas for inclusion of women and youth in politics, which is easy to track progress and hold government accountable, and then will reserve seats for these women and youth to ensure their presence in decision making. How do we address this? In countries like Rwanda, according to World Bank collections of indicators, the total population of Rwanda's women are about 51.7%, while in Nigeria we have 49.46%, and while youth in Rwanda is 53% and youth in Nigeria 60%, which is the same as it is in Nigeria. Before Rwanda implemented its quota system to increase women representation, they had a traumatic history of the genocide between the Hutu majority and the Tutsi minority, and the commitment to gender equality. A response to this issue was the implementation of the quota system, which they moved from 30% to 60%, which gives Rwanda the highest representation of women in the world. And the aftermath of this, they increased women's representation, there was global influence, there was role model effect, and there was socioeconomic outcomes. Now, this is a policy that we want Nigeria to adopt because it's evidence that it is workable. My second point: enhanced diversity. The diverse representation brings different perspectives and experiences. Finally, panel, they'll tell you in their word that they help to bring a slower process, but in our word, we bring it because it's sustainable, it is fast, and solve the problem at the root. Thank you.
Thank you once again to Team Veritas University. I'd like to sound a warning again that you should not go past your time. Audience, we're still debating the topic. Nigeria should adopt quota system instead of affirmative action to ensure youth and women representation in politics in Nigeria. We've heard from the first and second speakers from Veritas University, and now we call on the second speaker from University of Ibadan, Mr. Abdul Habib Akorede. All right. Mr. Habib, your time starts now.
Panel, note one very important contradiction that the proposition bench has made in today's debate. The opening speaker came to tell you that the quota system specifies a percentage in terms of representation, yes? Then, the closing speaker also came to say that the national gender policy, which actually specifies 35% women representation in all governance processes, is affirmative action. There is a problem between the understanding of both definitions in today's debate. I would like you to note that one is specific, which is the quota system, and that the other one, affirmative action, is very broad. There is a difference between both. Now, moving on to my arguments, Mr. Speaker. The one thing that we have to note is that according to a 2023 article by the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, some of the reasons why women and young people are actually not represented in politics is because of cultural and religious sentiments, financial limitations, lack of experience, among other reasons. Now, how does affirmative action solve this problem? It solves the problem by being far more comprehensive than the quota system in itself, as opposed to solving a problem by using a fixed number, which is essentially what the quota system tells you. We, through affirmative action, can actually solve it using legislation. And how does this work? We can create laws that actually allocate a certain percentage of the annual national budget to fixing some of the socio-cultural problems that women and young people encounter within the Nigerian space. Secondly, these laws can also be designed to eliminate barriers to issues like girl-child education and also create frameworks for enhancing partnerships between governments and private agencies such that both can now work together effectively on training women and young people in governance and advocacy. That is something that actually guarantees that these people are going to be represented in politics in the long run because they have now been trained in specific leadership skills. That is a very equipping mechanism that we present to you. Moving on, what other advantages does affirmative action have over the quota system? The Carnegie Endowment for International Peace also tells us that even after quotas have been put in place, male politicians still tend to try to maintain dominance by using intimidation and threats when women have been included through, like, some quota system or representative politics, which is what they also tell you from their bench. Now, what does this mean? It means that the same discrimination that they are trying to protect women from is still what happens within the quota system scenario, because now their solution really just does not work, and these women still end up facing discrimination from men who think that they basically, jumped the gun by being allocated slots within, say, the National Assembly or some other ministerial role. Now, what is in the alternative? Our own choice of lawmaking as a tool for affirmative action actually ensures that women and young people go through all the preliminary processes that they should before they actually become established politicians themselves. And this minimizes the risk of discrimination from the people who have already been there in the past. Because these people no longer think that, oh, you came in through a slot. They know that they actually work to get there. I mean, not to stand the fact that the government actually enabled it. So now, moving on. They might now come to argue again. They might also come to tell you things like, I already talk. Okay. For these reasons, I'm very proud to oppose. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Team University of Ibadan, Mr. Abdul Habib Akorede. We have heard from the first and second speakers from both parties, and we have made provision for a 30 seconds cross-examination round where debaters would ask clarifying questions and point out any facts that need clarity for their opponent. I'd like to call on the representative from Veritas University for cross-examinations.
Panel, ladies and gentlemen, the simple clarity we need in today's debate is that at the end of the day, what we want to achieve is that these people definitely get into politics and become decision makers. The opposition will have to prove to us how their gradual processes truly leads to youth and women being in politics. Realize that we don't just want empowered youth or educated youth. We want them to definitely get into the system and make decisions. That is what quota system does, but they don't prove to us how affirmative action in status quo has led to increase in youth and women. That is the clarity that they must give to us. They also talked about competence. It's not a problem because competent people will have to compete to even get there at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Team Veritas University. Cross-examinations only from the University of Ibadan. Please, you have the floor.
Let us do questions first, as that is what the purpose of this session is. The first question, does it not make sense that we actually fix the problem of underqualification, since you agree from your side that competence is a problem, which of course, resulting from a lack of inclusivity. So does it not make sense that we try not to jump ahead of ourselves by mandating that incompetent people be appointed without training? Moving on, they also talked about some Rwanda solutions. This is a debate about Nigeria. Let us create solutions that actually fit the Nigerian context, not some foreign country somewhere.
Thank you so much, Team University of Ibadan, for your cross-examinations, and Team Veritas University, thank you. I'd now like to call on the first speaker from Veritas University for closing arguments. Veritas University, you have 1 minute to close your arguments, and you have the floor now.
Panel, ladies and gentlemen, I would simply give you a comparative analysis of what comes from both sides of the House. From our side of the House, we tell you that competence is not even a problem. My speaker already proved to you how even if people are competent at the end of the day, if there is no space for them, they still don't get there and make the decisions, right? And what they tell you is that, oh, we are not going to have... The thing is that when there is a quota system, it means that women become incentivized to prove a point. Youth becomes incentivized to prove a point because it's now a mandatory thing. They cannot come to the show, oh, we've gone for not too young to run. So it means that we need to come into the show and make sense out of our political power. One thing we tell you is that it is important for us to choose a fast process. Why? So that they don't become apathetic. Imagine achieving not too young to run campaign and we have to wait for a gradual process that we are not even sure we end up in this we're getting into power. The fast process is this: women, youth. We've created a quota for you. We know you are competent. We see proofs of women and youth doing great things outside of the country. You can do it now. So get into the system. What we offer to you is something that is faster, and our fast movement does not create any loophole at the end of the day. I've never been more proud to propose a motion. Thank you.
We've had closing arguments from Team Veritas University. Call on the first speaker from the University of Ibadan for their closing arguments. Mr. Abdul Habib, you have the floor and you have 1 minute. Time starts.
Okay, so we're talking about the Rwandan context earlier, yes? So they said they want us to show results of affirmative action actually working. Now, we have established to you earlier that their citation of the Nigerian gender policy is actually a quota system mechanism. And we have shown you that it has not worked in the 17 years since when it has been created. Now, let us show you an affirmative action policy that has actually been functional. We have the Not Too Young to Run Act. Basically, that act tells you that people within this particular age bracket can now contest for certain offices within the country. That, in that sense, does not say, okay, we must have young people within this particular region. It actually says that you people go and compete for these positions, and then we have also reduced the age gap for you. Also, the Electoral Act. Now, the Electoral Act also solves the problem of financing because it says that parties, this is the amount that you can spend on your campaigns. And for that reason, women and young people can actually now compete a lot more favorably than what. So if they're asking for evidence today, we have certainly presented that to them. Now, these are the arguments that we raised to you once again, Mr. Speaker. So we said financial barrier is a critical problem which affirmative action actually solves, and yes does not, and as also fixes institutional problems by being comprehensive. Thank you.
Judges, I trust that this has been here you go, please. I trust that this has been a very, very, very difficult round to judge. I have no doubt about it. I don't know where to stand. So I'll let the judges give their feedback, just their thoughts on the round so far before we go on a short break. Please, Mr.
Hello, good morning,
Yes,
everyone.
Yes.
It's a pleasure to be here. And I must say that, please can you give these guys a round of applause? That was a very, very beautiful argument. I am so proud of the two schools and the amount of research, work, and data that has gone into this debate. So I'll just go over some of my general comments. I wouldn't be mentioning any of the schools, but just things that you could take away from here. High contact. Yeah, you are speaking to the judges, but we are marking you, but you are speaking to your audience as well. Please, when you come, make sure that you are maintaining eye contact, not just with the judges, but with your audience. It's very important. I love the statistics in both debates, very robust, very rich. But I also want us to be careful of throwing statistics without landing them. So you say in Nigeria, 67% of, to what end did you quote that? What point are you trying to drive? So please take note of that. Then I really like the point on how to check if a policy works is the results that it brings. I think that was a really good debate. Then I think one of the schools really had structure in their debate, and I think that is very important because that's the only way we know the number of points that you have made. So firstly, this is my point. Secondly, this is my point. It makes us take our mind from one point to another. Real life examples were good. And I also noticed that at a point, it looked like you guys were saying the same thing again and again. I don't know if the judges also felt that. Yeah, at a point, it was like you were saying the same thing, but with different statistics and the likes. And I think a particular school gave solutions. I think it was important that we did not just continue to hear the problems, but how are we going to solve it? I think those are my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, my fellow judge, and I'll call her the chief judge. Okay, so I'll just take it from where she stopped. I think it's very important that I say that you guys have been very confident in your delivery. Both teams that have come up so far, you've been very confident, and you've actually done your homework before you came here. However, I noticed one of the schools, one of the presenters, when she was speaking earlier, she was reading from her notes. And I think I actually expected more. The other people that spoke, from their head, they actually delivered better because they were speaking offhand. So I would recommend that for the other speakers. And even when one of the other person was reading from the notes briefly, it wasn't obvious because you just took points. You just used it as a point taker, and So I would advise that for other speakers as well. And I think it's been very engaging because for a moment I would think that I think this team is doing better, but when the other speaker comes up, they come up with counter arguments. And particularly there was a point when one of the speakers had actually spoken about the root cause of the discourse we're having today. So I thought I was going to nail it. But when the counter speaker came up, I also addressed, said something that countered that. So I actually like the flow of the argument. So I would recommend that you keep it up. So those are my comments for now.
Yeah, thank you. I think my co-judge have actually, said everything. What I would just like to add is that it's not actually compulsory for you to finish your time. You don't need to hear the alarm or the sound before you wrap up. So, and I think it will also be good for other people that are coming on to actually, wrap up as soon as possible. It's not compulsory for you to, long your arguments and all. And finally, for the reading part too is actually, I think, going forward, let's see how we can actually itemize our point and speak to it and, move ahead. Then let's be more audible, because I noticed that the first rounds were actually very hot, quote and unquote, but the other rounds were actually, especially the third and the final one, your voices or the energy reduced a bit, and I think we should see how we can actually make it, from the energy should be 100 from beginning to the end. Thank you. And I think you guys did a very fantastic job. I love the policy angle and also the data. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, so because I'm also aware that, we're not just here to debate, we're here to learn. I also wanted to say that, imagine that I was arguing with my fellow judge, and I'm trying to make my points, and I'm just reading from a notes. It speaks, I came to read to you. So please, for the other speakers coming, if you are going to use your notes, what we usually recommend are just those sticky notes that we can even barely see or barely see you reading from. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much to our judges. We've heard from our judge to my left, Mr. Olaolu Akogun, who is the program manager at Junior Achievers Nigeria. Next to him is Barrister Oluwaseun Okpeyemi, an international tax consultant. And finally, we've heard also from Mr. Aziz Salau, who is the founder, Community Action for Food Safety. We've heard arguments from the team Veritas University and the University of Ibadan. I just want to remind our audience, both present and online, that the Youth Leadership Debate Competition is to address problems that affect young people and the Nigerian citizenry as a whole. And we're here not just to debate back and forth, but to also proffer solutions, workable solutions that can help us for the Nigeria that we want. Our judges have given us feedback for the first round. We will now take a short break, and when we return, we'll be hearing arguments from the University of Lagos and the University of Benin on the topic, electronic voting systems are still viable tools and solutions to ensure transparency in Nigeria. I'll take that again. Electronic voting systems are still viable tools and solutions to ensure transparency in elections in Nigeria. I remain your host, Ijoma Kalu from Leap Africa. Thank you.
Many might want to ask, what relationship has artificial intelligence with unemployment? But it is very glaring that artificial intelligence will create human clones, rendering the Nigerian human population redundant and needless.
About 59% of Nigerians do not have a job.
But she failed to understand that we are not saying climate change doesn't have any effect. What we are saying is climate change has effects, but then the poverty, education, and unemployment should be prioritized.
The use of AI is unlikely to cause unemployment because first, 80% of Nigerian population, right, are entrepreneurial in nature.
Prioritizing ethnic interest has done more harm than good, and it has led to a whole lot of conflict issues in the country.
The working condition and cost of living in Nigeria is one of the major reasons for JAPA in quotes, that is the migration of Nigerians, or the brain drain issue that we have currently.
The biggest issue facing Nigerian youth is unemployment, not unemployability.
Soft power and hard power are two distinct approaches to international relations in the African Union.
I would love to use the words of Wayne Leaper that says that the best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
I am inviting you to the Social Innovators Program and Award Ceremony this year. It's the special edition because it's the 10th time we're celebrating and showcasing young innovators in Africa, not just Nigeria. So you have to be there. The theme this year is maximizing Africa's potential through disruptive leadership and innovation. Look, young people are coming up with innovations. Young people are transforming their communities and taking responsibility because they are taking action now. You can be part of those young people. Come and learn. We have quite a number of interesting partners who are coming on board because where something good is happening, I mean, you're always going to find that there's a lot of attention there. It's happening in Abuja this time. So if you're anywhere in Abuja, make sure you are at the Abuja Continental on the 26th and 27th of October. Don't miss it. If you are one of those entrepreneurs who's doing great stuff in your community and you have the right systems and structures, or you've even been part of the Social Innovators program in the past, then I'm inviting you to this. If you are not, and you've never interacted with us, this is a great time to have that experience with Leap Africa. So we invite you to join us October 26th and 27th. We'll have some workshops, we'll have breakout rooms. The kind of support that you need beyond the event. So see you at SIPA 2023.
We're back on the Youth Leadership Debate Competition quarterfinal stage. We're in round 2, where we'll be hearing arguments from representatives of the University of Lagos and the University of Benin. They'll be debating the topic, electronic voting systems are still viable tools to ensure transparency in elections in Nigeria. We have the team from the University of Lagos supporting this motion, and the University of Benin will be opposing the motion. Just a reminder of the rules. The first speakers from both parties have 5 minutes for their argument. The second speakers have 3 minutes for their arguments to support the first speaker's arguments. After the first and second speakers from both parties have spoken, we have a 30 seconds cross-examination round where the debaters can ask clarifying questions from their opponents. After this, the first speakers from both parties will come for their closing arguments for 1 minute. Thank you very much. And there will be penalty for exceeding the time limit. Debaters, please, there is a laptop in front of you with the timer. So please ensure that you take a glance at it while you're debating. I would also like to remind you that there will be penalty for exceeding the time, and penalty for any rough language or objectionable language to your opponents. Penalties also remain for false assumptions or false submissions. So please make sure that you come correct. University of Lagos and University of Benin, I wish you all the best. We have Ms. Ememobong Ikpe and Eniola Oni from the University of Lagos. Please a round of applause for them, thank you. We have Ms. Victoria Oluwatosin Toluwaloju and Mr. Igbinosa Samuel from the University of Benin. I'll now call on the first speaker from the University of Lagos who is supporting this motion. Please, Ms. Eniola, come forward. And your time starts now.
Panel of judges, my audience, and my co-debaters, good morning. My name is Eniola Oni from the University of Lagos, and I am standing here today to propose the motion that states that the electronic voting system is still a viable tool to ensure transparency in elections in Nigeria. According to Britannica, the electronic voting system, also called the EVS or the e-voting, is simply a form of computer-mediated voting where people can make their choice using an electronic device. You know what? The electronic voting system has proved to be way capable of its traditional counterpart in various things and with various features. Same features that prove to us that they are very important and valuable tools for transparency. Features like digital interface, verification, real-time reporting. Also, the electronic voting system can be utilized in every phase of the electoral cycle, starting from the registration, the verification, to the accreditation, to the voting, to the counting, to the transmission, to the collating, to announcing the results and declaring the winner. Every single step of the way, the electronic voting system can be used. Now, to the question of if the electronic voting system is actually a viable tool to ensure transparency in Nigeria, in elections in Nigeria, I believe it is. And I am going to be proposing this motion with the following premises. Number one, bettering the accreditation process. Number two, elimination of electoral fraud. And number three, propensity for growth. February 25, 2022, President Muhammadu Buhari passed into law the 2022 Electoral Act Amendment Bill. And in this act, the INEC was given the opportunity to decide whatever they wanted to do as regards the e-voting. And they chose to utilize the bimodal voter verification system, also called the BVAS, for this election. And they used it for the accreditation and transmission process of the electoral cycle. Now, this BVAS was used for accreditation. And how was it used for accreditation? They used the PVCs. It was able to read the PVCs of people, it used their fingerprints, and it's even used their facial recognition. This actually curbed a lot of non-transparency that has been going on in this particular sphere. Non-transparency like, underage voting, buying of PVCs, buying of votes, even duplicate votes, because it was able to read duplicate cards and prevented duplicate voting. Secondly, as regards the electoral fraud, if the electronic voting system is implemented in all of the electoral cycle, we can be assured that electoral fraud will be reduced or even eliminated totally. Why am I saying this? The electronic voting system has this ability to verify a vote immediately it has been cast. This will actually reduce overvoting and undervoting. Let us use Ghana as an instance. According to the Electoral Commission of Ghana, they affirmed that in their 2016 election, the use of the biometric verification and registration system helps them to fish out over 86,000 duplicate votes, improving transparency in the country. Now, I know that there will be arguments as regards the fact that there are security issues and technological barriers that will not make this thrive in Nigeria. But one thing I want us to know is that technology is always evolving, and this system can be worked upon. In fact, if we don't start working on it now, how will we know the things that need to be changed? Also, we might say that it is very expensive, but if we consider the end result, which is transparent election, we know that the result outweighs the cost. But more than asking if we really want to achieve, if this system can achieve transparency, I think the question that we should be asking is that, do we all truly desire a transparent election in Nigeria? Do we all truly desire a democracy of the government of the people, for the people and by the people? Because if we truly do so, we will find every means to achieve it. Where there is a will, there is a way. But where there is none, there are excuses. Thank you.
Brilliant submissions from the first speaker from the University of Lagos. Audience, we're still debating the topic. Electronic voting systems are still a viable solution to ensure transparency in elections in Nigeria. We've heard Ms. Eniola Oni representing the University of Lagos. We'll now be hearing from the first speaker from the University of Benin, who will be opposing this motion. Ms. Victoria Oluwatosin Toluwaloju, you have the floor. And your time starts now.
One of the numerous dividends of democracy is the ability to vote and to be voted for. On the 25th of February 2023, Nigerians with every bit of hope and enthusiasm took to the polls to vote in the Presidential and National Assembly elections, because the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has promised to implement the electronic voting system. Nigerians were excited. And the reason for this was because of the irregularities and the inconsistencies that election has been plagued with in our country. But then, Nigerians' hope were dashed. For Nigerians, the light has come. But really, as this light comes to illuminate the path of the Nigerian democracy, ladies and gentlemen, co-debaters, panel of judges, my name is Tosin Toluwaloju from the University of Benin. And I stand here to argue against the motion that says the electronic voting system is a viable tool to ensure transparency in election. By the electronic voting system, we mean the implementation or the use of digital tools in election. And by transparency in the context of business and governance, it means a state of being open, honesty. Nigeria is at a crossroads with technology and tradition, where those two intersect. In this debate, we're going to be looking at three things: the level of digital literacy, the level of digital penetration, what's the security of the electoral process in Nigeria. And we'll start with this. First, the electronic voting system is prone to cyber attack. And this can compromise the integrity of elections. But you would agree with me that the United States is more developed than Nigeria, because Nigeria is a developing nation. But in 2017, the BBC reported that Russia hacked into 21 state US elections. And the Arise News, in January 12, 2023, this year, said in their news that the Ogun State website was hacked into. It's a government website. And over time, we've seen that other websites has been hacked into. The EFCC, even the INEC in 2015, the NDDC as well. And what's the impact of this? Is that it will jeopardize the people's chances and ability to vote in election. And this would against democracy. It's anti-democratic. The fact that I cannot vote in an election as a citizen. Another thing is that to put to power people who are financially rich, people who can pay the big Russia, people who can pay the big tech China. Another thing is that it is not secured. It is not secured. It is because technology innovation comes with its loopholes, and it can be done by two persons, either by the persons that introduce the technology or by extreme hackers. Is that the democracy that you bargained for? I think you should ask yourself that question. Secondly, according to Business Day, it says that the digital penetration in Nigeria is at 47.3%. And the largest network provider, their broadband is at 37%, which is MTN. Now, how do we ascertain that the areas without digital penetration are covered? How do we achieve transparency? We need participation for transparency to be achieved. What is democracy without participation? What will be the fate of votes who are in these areas, or voters who are in these areas that the connectivity has not gotten to? What will be the fate of those in the creeks of Gele Gele, across the rivers of Port Harcourt, over the hills of Indori? What will be their fate? What then is democracy if we can't exercise a core responsibility such as voting? And this will lead to digital divide and marginalization. The last thing I'll be saying here is technicality issues. You would agree with me that in the last election, we had a lot of technicality issues. The beavers was not working, could not recognize fingerprints, and a whole lot of things, even face sensors. And the cable reported this too, and said that it was due to logistic reasons such as fingerprints, face recognition, and so on. I will want to tell you that the bane of this debate is not to say that. The bane of this debate is the transparency of the electronic voting system. It's even in a country where our national grid can collapse at any time. I rest my case.
I must say that the motion being debated is a very touchy one, seeing where we have come after February 2023. And I would like to say thank you very much to the first speakers from the University of Lagos and the University of Benin for stating their arguments very clearly. I'd like to now call on the second speaker from the University of Lagos, Ms. Ememo Bongikwe. Your time starts now.
A wise man once said, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result can be likened to the path of a foolish man. I believe we Nigerians are not foolish. Nigeria, Africa's largest democracy, over the years, has been hindered with the problem of electoral fraud, thuggery, and violence. due to the manual use of ballot papers in voting. You will agree with me that the wise thing to do if you want a change in transparency is to change the method of voting. Standing on all existing protocols, I stand to assert that electronic voting system is still and will continue to be a viable solution to tackle the issue of transparency in Nigerian election. My opponent talked about cyber attacks, cyber security, inclusivity, and all of that. According to INEC, 2023 election, 93.7 million voters, 93.7 million people were accredited voters, eligible voters. But out of that, how many people voted? What is the use of inclusivity when it will not be transparent? You talk about cybersecurity. There is a solution to that. We understand your consent, but there is a solution to that. The electoral body of Nigeria, INEC, can adopt the use of blockchain technology. It is not only here, other countries like the US, the Russia, Japan are using it. The blockchain technology allows for end-to-end encryption that does not allow a third party to interfere in the vote. You might bring up concerns of data being lost when the server crashes. This technology does not save the data on a single server. It has a multiple connected server where it can be publicly accessed by any means. I would also like to prove to my point, my opponent, why I say this method is a viable solution. According to Vanguard News, in 2007, post-election petitions was 1,291. In 2019, it was 807. In 2023, it was 431. What am I trying to prove? If you plot this graph, you will see that there is a decline. In 2023, it was when we used BVAS and IREV. If this does not show that putting in an electronic device in election can curb down transparency, I don't know what else you want us to talk about. If you want to change the process, if you want a change, you need to change the process. Thank you.
Once again, interesting submissions. I'd like to call on the second speaker from the University of Benin, Mr. Igbinosa Samuel Letinosa. You have 3 minutes, Mr. Samuel. Time.
Today, I mourn with voters of Yagba East Local Government, Kogi State. I doff my heart to voters who came out in their numbers, ready to follow this team, Igoyan. They were ready to give their voice, ready to contribute their quota by voting. And guess what? Our hopes were raised high. The Nigeria spirit in us rose up. We fought plagues and fought all odds of insecurity, scarcity, because INEC promised us that there is a new innovation that will make for transparency. But on getting to the polls, we were denied access. People of Yagba East Local Government, Kogi State, and more polling units were denied access. They were disenfranchised. And why was this? NAN's report with the Kogi State Coalition Officer, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ilorin, Mr. Agbewale Wahab, he said, at Unit 006 of Ward 10, we have no option but to cancel the election because the BVAS, the presiding officer at the polling unit, could not make use of the BVAS. What is democracy when people are not included? These people were ripped off their fundamental human right to vote. They were disenfranchised due to the electronic voting system. Panels, ladies and gentlemen, listeners, and everybody under my voice, I, Igbinosa Samuel, vehemently stand against the motion that electronic voting system is still a viable tool that will ensure transparency in election in Nigeria. Let us assess the debate topic. There is a phrase Still, meaning electronic voting system has failed us. Should we still delve into it? Anybody who wins today's debate must put two things into consideration: the nature of Nigeria and the nature of democracy as transparency. Democracy, like the proposition said, is a government for all. And I wonder why the second speaker comes to say democracy that does not include inclusivity. What is democracy? Government for all, by all, and of all. So if a certain people are being disenfranchised, that is not democracy enough. Let's also check the legal framework. What we need to correct in Nigeria election today is our policies. Let us make firm policies that correct electoral abuses. And it saddens me that the proposition for speaker was all about electoral fraud, when we have other pending issue, electoral violence. Why not let us address this thing with strong policies? Imagine in our electoral act, section 92 to be precise, it says that people who contravene election rules like promoting violence would pay 1 million or 2 million. And imagine in a political party in Nigeria, 20 candidates got presidential form for 100 million. With 2 million be hard for them to pay. Let's think on this word. Let's make stronger policies. Policies like suspension of such parties. And I would like to also consider the financial capability of Nigeria. We cannot afford blockchain. Our budget is 21 trillion and 70% of that budget is borrowed. And I will end with the word of a wise man. He says, do it, to have to do something well is having to do it, is having done it, not having to do it. Amen. It says, for those that will do it, it says, the result of having to do something well is having done it, not to do it. Democracy is not transparent without participation. Thank you.
Thank you, audience. That was a rousing applause for the University of Benin. We have now heard arguments from the first and second speakers from both parties. In support and opposition of the motion, electronic voting systems are still a viable solution to ensure transparency of elections in Nigeria. I'd like to now open the floor for a 30 seconds cross-examination round from both parties. I'll call first on the first speaker from the University of Lagos. Okay, the second speaker from the University of Lagos will be taking the cross-examinations. Please remember that you are only asking clarifying questions to your opponents. Time starts now.
Okay, so while my opponent was speaking, it talked about electoral violence. Will there be electoral violence if you are in your house voting on your electronic device? He also mentioned that we cannot afford blockchain. But according to statistics, in 2015, we spent $625 million in election. With the current state of Nigeria, can we afford another election like that? Thank you.
Same University of Benin, you have the floor. 30 seconds.
I smiled. I would answer your question. No, we cannot have such election because we introduced the electronic voting system and it failed us. A report put together by European Union Observation Team stated that there was a widespread of public confusion and misinformation as to the difference between manual collation and transmission of real time, showing that INEC were not able to really give us information. So my question to the proposing team would be that, how do you manage the knowledge gap between those who understand or have access to digital device as against those who don't have, bearing in mind that the Punch puts it that Nigeria illiteracy rates stand at 31% with over 76 million adults not educated.
Time.
So please, I would like for you to clarify that. Thank you.
I will now call on the first speaker from the University of Lagos for their closing arguments. Ms. Eniola Oni, you have the floor and you have 1 minute. Time.
All right, I'm going to answer you. You asked about education. Section 2 of the Electoral Act mandates that INEC should educate every single person about election even before the election. That is why even during the 2023 election, you see videos, you see a lot of materials going on about the election. So that is not valid. Yes, my opponent can say that the beavers failed. I agree with that. But one thing they cannot claim is that it was a total failure. According to INEC, the beavers recorded a 98% success rate in the accreditation, as opposed to the 29.2% of the smart card reader that was used in 2019. An understanding of geometric progression and compound interest will make us understand that we cannot ignore little changes, especially if that change is continual. Now, India, the same country that has the same ecosystem, like our similar ecosystem with ours, actually used 22 years to come to the place where they finally adopted electronic voting system. 22 years. And we want to give up on Nigeria in just 4 years? Thank you.
With the risk of sounding biased, I think the debate just started. We've heard those arguments from the first speaker, second speaker from the University of Lagos and the University of Benin. I'd like to now call on the second speaker, or rather, the representative of the University of Benin for their closing arguments. 1 minute. Time.
Like I said, the European Union noted that the education was not enough. So quoting the section was not even the deal because it's a written work. And I would like to let you know that we should not dwell too much on the theory capabilities of electronic voting system. Rather, we've seen it played. We were online. You were on the streets on February 2023, ready to vote, ready to give your quota to the society. But like the words of Yagi Africa, while piling an observation on 2023 election, they said what? Dashed hopes. To every innovation, there is destruction. To every new level, there is a devil. But the devil of electronic voting system has proven to outnumber his good, which is why I vehemently oppose the motion that it is not a possible tool in next election. And you made mention of the fact that we've tried this for 4 years. Should we continue wasting our monies to things that do not benefit us? Nigeria presently needs urgent developmental changes. The fuel is sold for 600 per litre, and Punch is projecting that it will be sold for 900 per litre because of the increase of dollar rates. We need to face these things and leave technologies that removes us from the whole concept of democracy. Thank you.
It's been 2 exhilarating rounds of debating Nigeria's policy issues. First, on the adoption of quota system instead of affirmative action to ensure youth and women participation in politics in Nigeria. And second, that electronic voting systems are still a viable solution to ensure transparency in elections in Nigeria. We have heard arguments from the Veritas University, University of Ibadan, the University of Lagos, and the University of Benin. I think our judges have also had a very hard time noting their observations and verdicts for the rounds that we've had. I see it from how their faces go from shock to smiles to, oh, okay, let's think about that again. And I'd like to give it back now to the judges to give us their observations for the just completed round.
Yeah, I think you're actually right, and I want to strongly believe that at the end of this whole exercise, for each of the topics, we are actually going to come up with something like a policy brief that would really, that we can push to different authorities for them to also learn these interesting stuffs. They're actually new, and I think you can all agree with me that it was 100, the energy was 100 from the beginning to the end, and I want to give it to all the speakers. So I just want to tell us that we should be a little bit calm while we present our stuff. Of course, yeah, you can keep it 100 while being calm, so that we would not really go back and start treating what is not supposed to be treated. So, but aside from that, every other thing is actually very perfect, and I think my co-judges would agree with me on this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Again, I think the debaters, another round of applause for the debaters. You did an amazing job. But compared to the first debate, I think this was a bit too emotional. I don't know if the judges agree with me. With debating, we understand emotions are very good, but what we are dealing with is facts. What we are dealing with is how are you supporting the facts that you have given me? The points that you have made, what are these data that you want me to see to prove the point? So yes, please let's pay that in mind. Yes, emotions are good, but what we are looking at is the data that are supporting the facts that you're letting us know. I mean, for the topic, I actually thought it was going to be very difficult for the supporting team because of what had just happened before our very highs with the elections. But I was quite impressed with the supporting team being able to still give arguments despite the fact that, you know, it looked like what just happened. We literally saw all of this happening. But I think both sides gave very brilliant arguments. Someone said, according to statistics, please, let's not do that. What is your statistics you're talking about? As a matter of fact, I actually check. So when somebody said, according to INEC, they said 98% BVAT, I checked my phone and it was actually correct. So don't come here with according to statistics or cooked up statistics. You might just be one of the random ones I'm picking and I'm checking. Yeah, so that is what I want to say.
All right, thank you very much. So I think the delivery was very natural for me, for both teams. It was very natural. And you also made good use of time compared to the first set of teams that we had. And in terms of the delivery, I liked the flow. You know, how you were able to move from your introduction, you know, to your point, to your argument, and stating your facts. But I would like to correct something. While one of the presenters was speaking, talked about the manual use of ballot paper. So in Nigeria currently, we've not moved away from the use of ballot paper. Our electronic voter system still adopts the use of ballot paper. It hasn't been eliminated from our electoral system. So I don't think that point was correct or relevant to the agreements that we're having today, based on the context of, you know, Nigeria. Then I think there was a part for one of the speakers, you highlighted a lot of challenges, you know, but you didn't actually provide solutions. You know, you were just highlighting the challenges. So I was expecting that after you've highlighted the challenges, you should also provide solutions, you know, based on the challenges you've identified from the opposing speakers. So that's something, you know, subsequent speakers should take note of. Don't just highlight the loopholes in the other people's arguments. You should also provide solutions, because the minimum of this discourse is to identify solutions that we can run with going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our judges. We have Mr. Olaolu Akogun, Barrister Oluwaseun Okoyemi, and Mr. Aziz Salahu as our judges for the quarterfinal rounds. Audience, we would like to take a 2-minute breather, and when we return, we will hear arguments from the third round between University of Ilorin and the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi, on the topic, social safety nets alone cannot protect marginalized populations from fuel subsidy removal. We'll take a break now, just a short music break for 2 minutes, and when we return, the rounds will begin. Thank you.
To be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest, was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the Youth Leadership Development Programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development. The Youth Leadership Debate is a program that provides the platform for young people to use their voices and knowledge to drive conversations for national development. It is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, implemented by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. The 2022 Youth Leadership Debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause a transformed Nigeria. Its goal is to provide capacity building to young people across tertiary institutions and support them to critically evaluate information, advocate from the point of knowledge, and to collectively shape their future of Nigeria. The conversations led on the platform of the Youth Leadership Debate goes on to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the Youth Leadership Development Programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development.
You're welcome back, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We're now on round 3 of the quarterfinal stage of the Youth Leadership Debate competition, brought to you by the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, an initiative by Leap Africa, MacArthur Foundation, and Ford Foundation. We are here debating social issues that concern the entire citizenry in Nigeria. We've heard topics like Nigeria should adopt quota system instead of affirmative action to ensure youth and women representation in politics in Nigeria. Electronic voting systems are still a viable solution to ensure transparency in elections in Nigeria. We're now on round 3, where we will be discussing the topic. Social safety nets alone cannot protect marginalized populations from fuel subsidy removal. Representing the University of Ilorin, we have Ms. Olorunyomi Adebimpe Covenant and Ms. Ayondele Peace. For the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, we have Ms. Florence Abizun Oga and Ms. Gift Umaru. The University of Ilorin will be supporting this motion, while the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University will be opposing the motion. Each of the first speakers have 5 minutes to marshal out their points. The second speakers have 3 minutes to support the points made by the first speakers. And after first and second speakers from both parties have spoken, there's a 30 seconds slot for cross-examinations, where you ask clarifying questions to your opponents. After the cross-examination rounds, each party has 1 minute to crystallize their round and offer closing arguments. It's now time for round 3. Now I'd like to call on the first speaker from the University of Ilorin, Ms. Oloriyomi Adebimpe Covenant. Time starts now.
Today, as change makers, I would like us all to embark on a journey. I would like you, and you to put your feet in the shoes of the taxi drivers who formerly earn 5,000 naira daily, to put your feet into the shoes of the low-level civil servants who are still earning below the minimum wage, to put your legs into the shoes of the beggars who depend upon the 500 and 1,000 naira notes that are given to them, and finally, to put your feet into the shoes of the Nigerian students who are currently facing the 200% hike in transportation fare. Now, the question in today's debate: if the government should disburse 8,000 naira monthly alone to these groups and individuals concerned, do you think that it's going to be enough to protect them from the impact of fuel subsidy removal? Whatever you think the answer is, you are absolutely right. We are here today to strongly support that social safety nets alone cannot protect the marginalized population from the impact of fuel subsidy removal. Now to the definition of terms in today's debate. Social safety nets in Nigeria are defined by the National Social Coordinating Office, NASCO, as a set of programs and policies which are aimed at providing financial or other support to the poor and vulnerable people. Examples of social safety nets in Nigeria include Operation Feed the Nation, RRR, Rapid Response Register during the COVID-19, as well as the palliatives. This policy was announced by the President in his inaugural speech on the 29th of May 2023, which is going to be included in Nigerians' policy. Now, to another question: who are the marginalized population? This refers to the low-income earners in Nigeria, including people living in poverty, people living with disabilities, and people who are internally displaced. What does the term protect mean in the context of today's debate? It means to provide them with a minimum standard of living until this crisis wanes. Social safety nets are targeted to address the major needs of the marginalized groups. What are these needs? According to a comprehensive study in Nigeria conducted by the Nigeria Living Standard Survey, which was carried out by the National Bureau of Statistics in 2018, found out that the main needs of poor people in Nigeria include inadequate access to food, transportation, clean energy, income, and unemployment. Now, how does this policy work? According to an article published by the Republican magazine, this policy is known as a conditional cash transfer program that would provide cash payments to low-income households to offset the burdens of the first subsidy removal. What does this policy entail? On the 18th of July 2023, according to the Republican magazine, the President Tinubu administration announced plans to disburse 8,000 naira to poor Nigerians following the removal of the fuel subsidies. Our claim in today's debate is that social safety nets alone cannot do the work. Why? Increase in debt burden. According to Mr. Abubakar Ahmed, a member of the HOR Committee on Loans, Aid and Debt Management, federal lawmakers have approved the $800 million from the World Bank, which is a loan that was requested by the former president, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari. Now, this policy alone will be problematic because Nigeria is currently facing a debt stock of 46.25 trillion. This will be burdensome because there is no return for the government in this regard. It is not an investment because it's going to be given out. So this will only worsen the country's existing debt crisis. Now, to the solution of today's debate, having proven that this policy alone is not sufficient and cannot stand efficiently alone, what is going to serve as an addition or a backup plan to this social safety net? We are not saying that social safety nets are not good. What we are saying is that social safety nets alone cannot do the work of protecting these marginalized populations. Now, we come up with a 3-point agenda that focuses on the needs that we have mentioned of the marginalized population. The first model is the social safety net model, and due to its limited capacity, it can serve as a source of income to meet the food requirement. The next is the energy investment model. The government should accept a shift to the compressed natural gas, CNG, by prioritizing CNG, the abandoned autogas policy. CNG currently costs 100 to 110 naira per unit, which is way below the 488 to 540 naira per liter cost of petrol. The government has a lot of public buses for transportation, which they can even channel these loans into, which can also give them returns. The last policy that is working on the refineries in Nigeria, and with this, we are proud to support the motion. Thank you.
Interesting submissions by the University of Ilorin. I'd like to remind the debaters that you can take a glance at the PC in front of you to ensure that you're still within your time. I'd like to now call on the first speaker from the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Ms. Florence Abizun.
Esteemed judges, my fellow students, co-debaters, good afternoon. I am Florence Abizu Oga, and I'm honored to engage in this thoughtful debate. Social safety net alone cannot protect the marginalized from the impact of fuel subsidy removal. I intend here in Lagos, and I had to take the yellow bus called Danfo from Palm Grove to Apapa. As a visitor in Lagos, the windows of Danfo exposed me to men within the ages of 17 to 40 under the pedestrian bridges. These men, you see, are living and recycling water bottles. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here as a voice for these men. Because you see, the term marginalized community can be defined as a community of people who face discrimination and exclusion due to unequal power relationship across social, political, or economic dimensions. So, ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that these men are economically excluded. So you see, the term social safety net alone means there is no order, cannot protect. Protect means to preserve, to secure, to guard these citizens. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the term social safety net can be defined in multiple ways, and that's according to an article published by the Asian Economics titled "The Meaning of Social Safety Nets." Everybody can define social safety nets in their own way. But the International Labour Organization defines social safety nets as government-provided anti-poverty benefits. You see, the IMF estimates consider poverty lines of $3.2 per day for low-income middle countries like Nigeria. Today, $1 is 980 naira to 1,000 naira. $3.20 means we are having 3,200 naira. Ladies and gentlemen, Iya Aisha, who is selling banana by the roadside, the Aboki, who is a father who is repairing wristwatches under these bridges, the child who has been sent out of his father's house in the name of being an almajiri on the streets, do not spend or have $3.20 per day. You see that the impact we are talking about today is fuel subsidy removal. And fuel subsidy in itself was the solution to a problem. Due to the hike of prices in 1973, Nigerian government had to bring fuel subsidy. And President Bola Ahmed Tinubu removed it due to the $6 billion fraud reported by Al Jazeera. You see today, ladies and gentlemen, our argument is social safety net alone. Social safety nets work in multiple ways. It can be healthcare, unemployment benefit like the National Youth Safety Corps. NYSC is a social safety net. It can be disability insurance like the one done in the USA, the supplemental security income for disabled, blind, and seniors over 65 years. But ladies and gentlemen, what does the statistics say? The World Bank stated that 36% of the poor persons over the world have escaped poverty. Data also shows that data also proves that social safety nets help the poor people all around the world. In Nigeria, the federal government have released a lot of social security nets. And according to the Guardian newspaper, over 40 million people have benefited from it, like the End Power. And over 300,000 vulnerable households have benefited from it. You see, anything my opponents will bring today, like the CNG, will not affect these people directly. But giving food, giving employment opportunities to these marginalized people will help us improve their lives, will help us guard their lives while we are feeling the impact of fuel subsidy. Ladies and gentlemen, you see, the term social safety net can be defined in multiple ways. But our argument today is the marginalized need to feel this impact directly. Thank you.
Very interesting submissions from Team Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University on opposing the motion, social safety nets alone cannot protect marginalized populations from fuel subsidy removal. I would now like to call on the second speaker from the University of Ilorin, Ms. Ayondele Peace, for her supporting arguments. Peace, you have 3 minutes. And your time starts now.
Thank you. I'll take it up from where the opposition talked about the fact that our alternative source of energy does not directly affect the marginalized population. But that's not exactly true, because our alternative source of energy would result into industries having a lower rate of cost of production, because this alternative source of energy would cause a reduction in cost of production. They use alternative fuels, which would in turn reduce the prices of goods and services. And these prices of goods and services are now affordable to the marginalized population. So that proof doesn't stay. So our stand in this debate remains that social safety net alone cannot protect the marginalized population from the impact of fuel subsidy removal. And I'll tell you why. So one of the reasons, because social safety net alone is not adequate in itself. So on the 29th of May 2023, following the announcement of the removal of fuel subsidy by the president, NNPC raised the price of fuel from the promo price that was less than 200 naira to price ranging from 480 naira to 570 naira. So what conditional stipend disbursement of fund from the foodstuff or whatever it is that the federal government wants to use as a cushion to reduce the effect of this increase, an increase of about 200%. What's the margin? What's your metric for measuring the impact that this removal of fuel subsidy has caused, and the provision that the federal government is planning to provide? So social safety nets alone are not adequate in themselves. They need supplement. We need to complement them with other things. Secondly, social safety nets are not dependable. So it brings me to when the COVID-19 palliative, we saw the hoarding of the palliative that were supposed to be distributed to communities. I'm afraid if we depend on social safety nets alone, we know how that ended. We know the story. We heard it. We saw how the citizens had to loot the warehouses to get what was supposed to be theirs. We don't want to expose these marginalized communities. We don't want to leave them vulnerable in the hands of programs that we are sure that will not work or that we know that are inadequate. And that is why we are proposing our models, solutions to these problems that we know are existing. Again, we know that social safety nets are working, but our models, our solution is to complement. My chief speaker has talked about alternative source of energy. Now, another model or solution is to revamp the downstream of the oil sector. That's the refining of our refineries. We should revamp our refineries. And I know the question the opponent want to say is we don't have funds. But according to the Central Bank of Nigeria, reports by the Punch News dated 24 of February 2022, $1.04 billion was spent on fuel importation in 2021. So fund exactly is not the problem. The problem is proactivity on the part of our government. Thank you.
We have now heard from the first and second speakers from the University of Ilorin supporting the motion. Social safety nets alone cannot protect marginalized populations from fuel subsidy removal. Calling on the second speaker from the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Ms. Gift Umaru. Ms. Gift, you have 3 minutes and you have the floor. Time.
So my opponent mentioned the fact, her first speaker spoke on how social safety nets cannot, social safety net alone cannot help protect marginalized communities. But then her second speaker said, because of funds, and then her second speaker said funds is not an issue. So I'm a bit confused on whether, if there are funds, then the funds can be used for the social safety net. So I am not really clear on that, their point. Okay, so I'm the second speaker for Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University. I'm Umaru Gift. The building sustainable and affordable safety net is a key component of the World Bank Social Protection and Labor Strategy 2012 to 2022. Now, with the impact of fuel subsidy removal, it heightens the urgency for social safety nets to be able to help marginalized communities. Examples of communities in Nigeria that have benefited from social safety nets, we have Borno, we have Adamawa. In Borno, where more than 12,200 citizens benefited from the palliative distribution which took place in 2023. The chairman of the Northeast Civil Society Forum, Ahmed Shehu, even commended these states and also said that other states should involve social security organizations in the palliative committee for transparency and accountability. We also have the Edo State government, which has approved free transport service for passengers on all Edo City Transport Limited routes, kicked off on Monday, September 11, 2023. We have an IDP camp, internally displaced persons, in Damari camp in Girie local government area of Adamawa. Ladi Paul, the women leader of the camp, said over 227 families were beckoning on the government to either provide, to please come to their aid and provide food for them. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask, please, should the government respond to these IDP camp people with CNGs, or they should give them the food they are asking for? The World Bank shows how cash transfer not only help nations invest in human capital, but also serve as a source of income for the poor. In Nigeria, under the umbrella of National Social Safety Net Program called Need for Power, End Power, Dr. Aminu, Director of Documentation and Publication, National Orientation Agency, Abuja, said that to a reasonable extent, Empower has addressed the challenges of unemployment, providing large-scale and relevant skill acquisition. Lastly, remember that a hungry man is an angry man. Now, when we leave our youth hungry and angry, they venture into different forms to provide for themselves. It could be kidnapping, it could be armed robbery, which will put all of us at risk, both the poor and the rich. We should also remember that to protect means to preserve, to guard, to fortify, to safeguard, and to keep alive, and not to necessarily eradicate the issue on ground. The issue on ground being protection of the marginalized population from the impact of fuel subsidy removal. Thank you.
Must admit, it's a dicey topic to debate as well. We've now heard the speakers from the University of Ilorin and the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University. I'll now open the floor for the 30 seconds cross-examination rounds, and I'll be calling on the speaker from the University of Ilorin. You have 30 seconds, please. Time starts now.
The opposition has affirmed that social safety net will help reduce poverty and all, but they have failed to show us how their strategy for the disbursement of these welfare and social packages will work. They have also failed to show us the depth and the breadth of their analysis. So what is your strategy, what is your metric for measuring the disbursement of these funds to the marginalized community? Also, I would like to point out that this debate is not about fuel subsidy removal. The deed has been done. This debate, this motion is about whether social safety net is enough or not. Thank you.
Speaker from Abuja Quota University, please. Go ahead. 30 seconds. Now.
My opponents have spoken well, but they fail to also show us how their alternatives will preserve, will secure the lives of this marginalized community. Because you see, everything they brought so far will not directly affect this marginalized community. Because according to the Guardian news, that these social safety nets have made people to say the government have finally affected the lives of these citizens directly. We want to keep these people. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is now open for the closing arguments for the University of Ilorin and Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University. I'd like to call on the representative from the University of Ilorin for their closing arguments. 1 minute, please. Thank you.
Panel. The social safety net policy that will most likely be enacted should be the heart of this discussion, which is the proposed 8,000 naira, not free transportation in Edo, not food services, but the 8,000 naira that has been proposed by this administration to be dispersed to the marginalized population. Now, the strategy that we are producing covers all the basic needs of the marginalized population. When I was in 100 level, the Marco Polo bus that conveys students was about 20 naira. But now, the price of the Marco Polo bus, the public bus, has actually increased because of the removal of fuel subsidy. The government can no longer sustain this Marco Polo bus. This CNG that we are bringing out today, the compressed natural gas policy, from the loan that is going to be gotten from the government to be channeled into the social safety net, this can actually be used to invest into CNG buses that individuals can pay at a subsidized rate.
Thank you, team. University of Ilorin. Next, a call on the speaker from the Tafawa Balewa University. Sorry.
My opponent keeps speaking about the 8,000 naira. The 8,000 naira no longer works because now the federal government have finally given the opportunity to the governors in each state to work directly with the poor people and the marginalized people in their community. They talk about the CNG. You see, CNG is not in every state. We don't have CNG in Nasarawa State. So how will the poor people, the marginalized people of Nasarawa State feel? Should they wait for CNGs to come to Nasarawa State? Ladies and gentlemen, in the Bible, Matthew chapter 14, verse 17 to 12, the marginalized community that came to Jesus were fed with five loaves of bread and 2 fishes. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the Sahih Bukhari volume 7, book 65, hadith number 286, said we should feed the hungry. Ladies and gentlemen, I've proven to you today that social safety net doesn't only cover the 8,000 naira. We have good health care, we have transportation, and they are all under social safety net. You see, Mr. Aziz, you work for Act for Food. Are we going to give these people CNG, or we should give them food to protect them? Thank you.
Heartfelt conversations there, heartfelt submissions as well from the University of Ilorin and the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University. I believe we have heard closing arguments from both parties. And on that note, I yield the floor back to the judges for their feedback and observations for this round. Mr. Aziz, I believe you have something to say.
Yeah, thank you so much. And to your answer, food is life. Food is culture. It is what brings everybody together. So it is actually very, very important. So I think that's answer your question. And for me, I think the conversation is actually very, very interesting. And I think the only thing I would like to say is, so I think one of the speakers was actually hammering on the problems and the problems. You stated that, oh, it is actually not enough, and they could be complemented with other things like what and what. So I think there is need for you to be really specific when you are, as you are specific with the problems, be specific with mentioning the solutions. And this is what is actually going to guide us as we are all learning. Apart from the fact that we are, marking or taking points, we are also learning to see how we can also, advise the government and also the people and also ourselves going forward, especially in these challenging times. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aziz. I think you have said some of the things that I would have loved to say. But again, I think this was a very interesting session. My comment would just be that I could not see a clear distinction between what the two sides were speaking about. So it was safety net alone or safety net and other things, right? Debaters. One side was arguing safety net alone should do it. Another side was saying not safety net alone, so safety net and some other things, right? Yeah, but I'm not very clear on that distinction with the debate, but again, very good debate. But one other thing I would love to mention is the power of a good introduction. One of the debaters started with a very good introduction. When you are speaking to an audience, the very first 30 seconds of anything that you are going to say is very, very important. It is what will determine whether or not they are going to pay attention the rest of the debate or not. So please, debaters, take note. How you start your debate is just as important as how you end it. Thank you.
All right. So I think, like she said, some of you didn't really drive home your points well. You just danced around what you were talking about, but you didn't make the point eventually. So I think that's something subsequent speakers should take note of. Once you introduce something, you need to drive home the points so that we can really understand what you're trying to say. I also like the fact that you were able to relate the discourse to real life situations. It makes it, make it real, because you were able to relate it to real life situations. And I think that came from one of the introductions that was given. I think the other part is the fact that you were able to define some of the terms well. That also gave a context to your conversation, even though, like I said, eventually when you were making your points, you didn't drive it home well. But the definitions gave a context to what the discourse was about. So I would not want to go over what the other judges have said. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our judges. We have spent a good part of the past 2 hours debating Nigeria's social and policy issues. And we are currently on round 3, or we have just rounded up round 3 of the quarterfinals of the Youth Leadership Debate Competition. We've heard arguments from Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, the University of Ilorin, University of Benin, the University of Lagos, University of Ibadan, and Veritas University. We have also heard feedback from our judges to the debaters. I'd like to say a very big shout out to our judges, Mr. Olaolu Akogun, Barrister Oluwaseun Okpeyemi, and Mr. Aziz Salau. We'll be taking a short break now for 10 minutes. And when we return, we'll be going right next to the final rounds of the quarterfinal stage of the debate. We'll be hearing arguments from Obafemi Awolowo University and Bayes University, Abuja, on the topic, in achieving lasting security in Nigeria, individuals should be allowed to bear firearms. Thank you for staying tuned, and we'll be back in 10.
Debate is a program that provides the platform for young people to use their voices and knowledge to drive conversations for national development. It is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, implemented by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. The 2022 Youth Leadership Debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause a transformed Nigeria. Its goal is to provide capacity building to young people across tertiary institutions and support them to critically evaluate information, advocate from the point of knowledge, and to collectively shape their future of Nigeria. The conversations led on the platform of the Youth Leadership Debate goes on to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest, was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the Youth Leadership Development Programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development. The Youth Leadership Debate is a program that provides the platform for young people to use their voices and knowledge to drive conversations for national development. It is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, implemented by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. The 2022 Youth Leadership Debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause a transformed Nigeria. Its goal is to provide capacity building to young people across tertiary institutions and support them to critically evaluate information, advocate from the point of knowledge, and to collectively shape their future of Nigeria. The conversations led on the platform of the Youth Leadership Debate goes on to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest, was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the Youth Leadership Development Programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development. The Youth Leadership.
We were often told a lie growing up that we're leaders of tomorrow. And as I went through my 20s, I realized that the people who told me I was a leader were still leading in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, or should we say ruling. So the issues that plague Africa are still the issues that plagued Africa 20 years ago when we started.
Africa as a continent has been known as an emerging market, and you can't separate the opportunities from the young people.
And we can only develop if young people are empowered and equipped to have the space to express their brilliance and passion.
And if you look at the innovations, the new ideas, the creativity, you see that the young people are the ones who are really leading the way.
There are many bright spots, and where you see those bright spots in Africa, they're really linked to effective committed and dynamic leadership. Young people are agents of change, and that's the vision we have.
There's a huge innovation gap on the continent. You have young people who are talented and largely driven by passion, who go into starting enterprises without the requisite skills, knowledge, resources, relationships to be able to take them sustainably.
We couldn't sustain the programs we did. We lacked financial capacity.
It was just at the point where I was almost going to stop the idea.
The SIP Social Innovators Program was designed so that we can bridge that gap. We can fill that gap of capacity.
Indirectly, when they invested in me as a young person, they've invested in the over 11,000 plus women that we've been able to empower.
We were able to provide relief materials to over 3,000 inmates.
For just the last 3 years, after being a LEAP fellow, we are able to achieve that goal to the highest level I can think about.
Many might want to ask, what relationship has artificial intelligence with unemployment? But it is very glaring that artificial intelligence will create human clones, rendering the Nigerian human population redundant and needless.
About 59% of Nigerians do not have a job.
But she failed to understand that we are not saying climate change doesn't have any effect. What we are saying is climate change has effects, but then the poverty, education, and unemployment should be prioritized.
Use of AI is unlikely to cause unemployment because first, 80% of Nigerian population, right, are entrepreneurial in nature.
Prioritizing ethnic interest has done more harm than good, and it has led to a whole lot of conflict issues in the country.
The working condition and cost of living in Nigeria is one of the major reasons for Japa in quote, that is the migration of Nigerians or the brain drain issue that we have currently.
The biggest issue facing Nigerian youth is unemployment, not unemployability.
Soft power and hard power are two distinct approaches to international relations in the African Union.
I would love to use the words of Wayne Leeper that says that the best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Many might want to ask, what relationship has artificial intelligence with unemployment? But it is very glaring that artificial intelligence will create human clones, rendering the Nigerian human population redundant and needless.
About 59% of Nigerians do not have a job.
But she failed to understand that we are not saying climate change doesn't have any effect. What we are saying is climate change has effects, but then the poverty, education, and unemployment should be prioritized.
Use of AI is unlikely to cause unemployment because first, 80% of Nigerian population, right, are entrepreneurial in nature.
Prioritizing ethnic interest has done more harm than good, and it has led to a whole lot of conflict issues in the country.
The working condition and cost of living in Nigeria is one of the major reasons for Japa in quote, that is the migration of Nigerians or the brain drain issue that we have currently.
The biggest issue facing Nigerian youth is unemployment, not unemployability.
Soft power and hard power are two distinct approaches to international relations in the African Union.
I would love to use the words of Wayne Leeper that says that the best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Many might want to ask, what relationship has artificial intelligence with unemployment? But it is very glaring that artificial intelligence will create human clones, rendering the Nigerian human population redundant and needless.
About 59% of Nigerians do not have a job.
But she failed to understand that we are not saying climate change doesn't have any effect. What we are saying is climate change has effects, but then the poverty, education, and unemployment should be prioritized.
Use of AI is unlikely to cause unemployment because first, 80% of Nigerian population, right, are entrepreneurial in nature.
Prioritizing ethnic interest has done more harm than good, and it has led to a whole lot of conflict issues in the country.
The working condition and cost of living in Nigeria is one of the major reasons for Japa in quote, that is the migration of Nigerians or the brain drain issue that we have currently.
The biggest issue facing Nigerian youth is unemployment, not unemployability.
Soft power and hard power are two distinct approaches to international relations in the African Union.
I would love to use the words of Wayne Leeper that says that the best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Many might want to ask, what relationship has artificial intelligence with unemployment? But it is very glaring that artificial intelligence will create human clones, rendering the Nigerian human population redundant and needless.
About 59% of Nigerians do not have a job.
But she failed to understand that we are not saying climate change doesn't have any effect. What we are saying is climate change has effects, but then the poverty, education, and unemployment should be prioritized.
Use of AI is unlikely to cause unemployment because first, 80% of Nigerian population, right, are entrepreneurial in nature.
Prioritizing ethnic interest has done more harm than good, and it has led to a whole lot of conflict issues in the country.
The working condition and cost of living in Nigeria is one of the major reasons for Japa in quote, that is the migration of Nigerians or the brain drain issue that we have currently.
The biggest issue facing Nigerian youth is unemployment, not unemployability.
Soft power and hard power are two distinct approaches to international relations in the African Union.
I would love to use the words of Wayne Leeper that says that.
All right, thank you so much, and you're welcome back again to the Youth Leadership Debates Competition, an initiative by the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, supported by Leap Africa, MacArthur Foundation, and Ford Foundation. Here we are fielding to you young Nigerians who have been equipped to speak to Nigeria's socio-political issues, and to not just speak to them, but to prefer solutions to these issues. We want a community of young people who are not afraid to use their voices to bring change in their communities and in the country as large. We have the pleasure of having representatives from Veritas University, the University of Ibadan, the University of Lagos, University of Benin, University of Ilorin, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Obafemi Awolowo University, and Bayes University. We've seen quite interesting conversations across board since morning, and we're now on the final round of the quarterfinal stage of the debates. We'll be hearing arguments from the Obafemi Awolowo University and Bayes University. Representing OAU, we have Adebanjo Demilade and Adeyemi Taiwo. And for Bayes University, we have Mesomachi Erugo and Mr. Divine Marizu. The motion in contest today is, in achieving lasting security in Nigeria, individuals should be allowed to bear firearms. We have a distinguished panel of judges comprising of Mr. Olaolu Akogun, who is a program manager at Junior Achievement Nigeria, Barrister Oluwaseun Okpeyemi, an international tax consultant, and Mr. Aziz Salao, who is the founder, Community Action for Food Security. And the judges have done a very good job up until this moment to give interesting feedback to the debaters, and the judges also bear the burden of announcing to us the teams that will make it to the semi-final rounds of the debate. We're currently live at Lagos State University, and we want to say a big shout out to the administration and to the Student Union government and the Directorate of Sustainable Development Goals for supporting us to be here today. We'll go right into it now, audience and judges. And I would like to call on the first speaker from Obafemi Awolowo University, who will be supporting this motion. Please, a round of applause for Ms. Adebanjo Demilade. Ms. Demilade has 5 minutes, and her time starts now. Thank you. Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a pandemic of violence in Nigeria. According to the Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency, 2,543 cases of abuse were reported between January and September 2022. These cases of abuse, about 2,340 were involving women. But even this debate is not limited to sexual abuse and women. We have men in parts of Nigeria who are endangered and abducted by other gunmen. The security system has failed us in Nigeria. And if our defenders cannot defend us, should we stay defenseless or we should defend ourselves? Good day, Chairperson, panel of judges, talkmates, ladies and gentlemen. I am Adebanjo Oluwademilade, here to vehemently propose that in achieving lasting security in Nigeria, individuals will be allowed to take up firearms. Section 33, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria states that individuals have the right to life. This constitution goes on to further create the Nigerian Police Force in section 214. The Police Act in 2020 prescribes the duties of the police to protect the rights, freedoms of the citizens, as well as their life and properties. They also have the mandate to investigate crimes, among other duties. Now, our daily realities show us that the Nigerian police is currently not up to the task. When we need a solution at the moment, it is clear that while we wait for these systems to improve, we cannot keep dying. We need those firearms. My argument will be hinged on two standpoints. First, self-defense. Second, community defense. First, imagine if somebody is faced with an insecurity challenge, the person is literally loaded with guns and all you have is a cutlass. That doesn't make any sense. For the purpose of this debate, we'll be prescribing personal firearms as the firearms to be considered. These include shotguns, air guns, sporting rifles, and so on. The reason being most of the agents of insecurity utilize fairly sophisticated weapons to perpetrate harm on Nigerian citizens. Now, my opponents may worry about regulation of these firearms. Per Section 4 of the Nigerian Firearms Act says that license to bear these personal firearms would be particularly handled by the Inspector General of the Police. So you don't have to be worried, it will be regulated. And also, these particular firearms will be given to people in terrorized areas such as the northern Nigeria, so that they'll be able to defend themselves. The government will also set up training mechanisms that would include practical and theoretical training for people to handle these firearms responsibly. Now, look at it in this way. People go to the driving school to learn driving skills to move an automobile. At the same time, they go ahead to obtain their driver's license. This is literally what we're practicing in terms of firearms. Now, our opponents may be concerned about a potential increase in gun violence as seen in the USA. But we have to note that there are countries with fairly liberal gun laws, such as Switzerland and Czech Republic, which have relatively peaceful environments. This means Nigeria stands a good chance if you try to solve one of your major problems using this mechanism. Now, moving on to the second point, community defense. An important clarification here before I go on is that we are not supporting jungle justice. Instead, what we propose is that citizens should use these weapons so that they can withstand attacks and possibly apprehend these criminals, hand them over to the police when they arrive. Simon Njam lamented to the Voice of America in an interview about the insecurity in northern Nigeria, and he said, when we call the soldiers, they arrive after the attackers have left. Can we continue like this? We need these people to take action because our security agencies are not even being proactive. It is high time the citizens take responsibility for themselves and their communities. Note, we are not reading the government of its responsibility. Neither are we reading the law enforcement agencies of their responsibility. What we are pushing for is a collaboration between individuals and the government. Now, what is our recommendation? We would encourage the police force and the military to become more effective while citizens engage in self-defense. We would also need to make our borders less porous so that these people who are causing the insecurity in Nigeria won't have access to illegal firearms that are being distributed because of porous things, really. In conclusion, it's high time to realize that the war against insecurity has lasted too long. We are tired of seeing hashtags after villages have been raided and people have been killed. We have to take action now to get the Nigeria we want. Thank you.
Indeed, we must take action for the Nigeria we want, and which is why we are speaking up today. Thank you, first speaker from the Obafemi Awolowo University, supporting the argument that in achieving lasting security in Nigeria, individuals must be allowed to bear firearms. I'll now call on the first speaker from Bayes University, Ms. Mesomachi Erugo, to oppose this motion. Ms. Omachi, you have 5 minutes, and your time starts now.
Mahatma Gandhi once said, "An eye for an eye will only make the world blind." Let's take a second to imagine a Nigeria where individuals are allowed to bear firearms, where everyone constantly lives in fear, believing that their lives could end at any second. Yet the proposition is proposing that individuals should be allowed to bear firearms in achieving lasting security in Nigeria. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ms. Omachi Erugo, and today I will be presenting a compelling argument that in achieving lasting security in Nigeria, individuals must be allowed to bear firearms. Let me begin by buttressing the fact that without laws, there will be anarchy. And anarchy would lead to chaos, which will in turn pave a way for injustice in Nigeria. The law and the state basically exist to protect and preserve the rights of individuals in the country. Generally, the law does not allow just any person to access firearms because they can be lethal and dangerous and pose a grave danger to the society. Imagine feeling like that guy next to you. He could be holding a gun. How would you feel? Before I go deep into this argument, let's look at the definition of some terms. The Guardian newspaper defines insecurity as a state of general breakdown of law and order, or a situation where citizens of a country are exposed to uncontrollable danger, where everyone lives in fear. We understand that. But according to the Firearms Act, firearms means any lethal barreled weapon from which at any shot a bullet can be discharged. So at one shot, your life could just go. Particularly, the law makes an exception for those charged with the responsibilities of securing the lives and properties of individuals, which is why we are not saying that there should not be access to firearms, but individuals in the community cannot have access to these firearms unless under specific conditions. Allowing individuals to bear firearms or have access to this can increase the rate of violence in the country, particularly homicide, which is murder. Firearms always make conflicts more brutal and impulsive. It is no argument that people do not know how to control their anger. But imagine when you have a firearm with you, you can easily take the life of somebody because of a little anger or issue that you have. According to RAND Corporation, studies have found that increases in the prevalence of gun ownership are associated with the increase in violent crimes. Take, for instance, the United States of America, where gun ownership is liberalized. Even with the low crime rate in the United States, there are still reports of shooting at every instance every day. According to the UNODC, in Nigeria, firearms or the use of firearms are involved in over 54% of the homicide cases. One of the most important responsibilities of the state we cannot forget is the duty of safeguarding the lives and properties of individuals as provided under Section 14 of the 1999 Constitution. Allowing individuals to bear firearms would undermine the rule of law and the authority of a state, as firearms could be used by individuals to challenge or resist the government. Essentially, when the rule of law is observed with human rights as its essential component, everyone is secure. According to Small Arms Survey, Nigeria has experienced several armed conflicts, including the Boko Haram insurgencies that we know of, the Niger Delta militants. Armed robbery and kidnapping are on the increase, and I stand to argue that firearm ownership fuels these conflicts and crimes and destabilizes the country. Allowing individuals to bear firearms also creates a sense of fear and mistrust among people, as firearms could be used as a form of intimidation, coercion, or revenge. Individuals and Nigerians have low levels of trust in their fellow citizens and high levels of fear of crime. Firearm ownership would only aggravate this. Allowing individuals to bear firearms also leads to the high increase of suicide rates. According to a study by the Harvard School of Public Health, it revealed that over 50 states in America, there is a powerful link between the firearms ownership and suicide rates. A data from the Center for Control of Disease Prevention showed that in 2020, there were about 45,000 gun-related deaths in the United States. And this still showed that 29% of those things were caused by gun suicide and 69% of them were caused by homicide. We understand that there is a growing rate of insecurity in Nigeria, but we must look for other alternatives to solve this issue, which includes strengthening the law enforcement agencies we have in the country, state policing, deploying more trained security personnel in public areas to help deter criminal activity and provide a sense of security to the public and respond swiftly to potential threats rather than empower individuals to bear firearms. Thank you.
From the first speaker from the Bayes University. I think that the first speakers from both parties have done very well to lay out their arguments. I'll now call on the second speaker from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ms. Adeyemi Taiwo, to support the motion. Ms. Taiwo, you have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
There was a time in Nigeria when kids could go to school without the fear of being kidnapped. Business transactions went as planned. Banditry was what just we watched in movies. And farmers' only worries were pests and climate changes. Today, that time is fast becoming a distant memory. And that brings us to the question that should individuals be allowed to bear firearms in order to achieve lasting security in Nigeria? Panel, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Adeyemi Taiwo, and I'm here in support of the motion. First, ineffectiveness of the law enforcement system in Nigeria. The current state of law enforcement system is simply not effective enough to address the country's levels of crime and due to vices such as corruption. While police officers are dedicated and essential to a safe society, they are always limited in their ability to curb crimes and also provide justice due to being overworked and under-resourced. By allowing individuals to bear firearms, we are not only increasing the personal liberty to protect, defend, and guide themselves, but also decreasing crime. The mere knowledge of being the mere knowledge of an armed citizenry can serve as deterrent to potential criminals. While my opposition could say, like they said, that it could increase violence and crimes, it is actually the opposite. And this was buttressed by the law of iron mechanism, which says that prohibiting an item does not necessarily reduce its availability of usage. Instead, it creates a black market for that item. In this case, we're talking about firearms. We've seen this happen with the alcohol prohibition in the United States, and the war on drugs started in the 1970s. And locally and practically, criminals would still access firearms illegally, while most individuals that are law-abiding would not be able to access it. This ultimately rules out the process of accountability, because illegal firearms cannot be addressed. But when we allow individuals to bear firearms, they can be penalized for misuse or abuse of it. In addition to allowing individuals to bear firearms, training and screening of owners should be regularly conducted, and guns should be reinforced. Through this, lasting security with minimal impact will be protected. Second, increased security through the use of surveillance technology. Allowing individuals to bear firearms, government and law agencies will feel the need to increase surveillance to monitor potential threats through the use of technologies like facial recognition and AIs. We understand the concerns of the opponents that potential consequences could arise through economic inequality and division, because some people cannot allow it. However, what we must understand in today's debate is that we are not going to allow firearms to people because of their class, but because of trainings they will definitely go through. Thank you.
Thank you. We have just heard from Ms. Adeyemi Taiwo, second speaker from Obafemi Awolowo University, in support of the motion. I'll now call on the second speaker from Bayes University, Mr. Divine Marizu. Divine, you have the floor and you have 3 minutes. Time.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Building on the foundation laid by my first opposition speaker, I rise to further buttress the point that in achieving lasting security in Nigeria, individuals should not be allowed to bear firearms. You see, the opposition came up to tell you that if you bear firearms, you'll be able to protect yourself. However, when we look at the data and the evidence, there is no data or evidence to support this point. But in actuality, when you allow individuals to bear firearms, you actually put certain people at risk. These people are women who might be potential risk due to partner violence or violence at home. You increase the rate of suicide and you increase accidental deaths. The only example or evidence they gave was in comparison with Switzerland. However, we say that this is a faulty analogy because Switzerland has a unique system where gun ownership is tied to mandatory military service, accompanied by rigorous training. The contest, culture and country contests are different from Nigeria. These individuals are mandatorily trained by the military, and so they can be able to use this effectively. We can't do that in Nigeria. But furthermore, they also come to tell you that when we allow individuals to be armed, it will increase the rate of crime in the country. However, we say that this is false. Take, for example, in South Africa. You see, South Africa before 2004 had gun laws that enabled individuals to be able to bear firearms liberally. But when they implemented strict restrictions of firearms in 2004, the impact they got was that there was a 40% decrease in crime between 2004 and 2007, as was reported by the South African government. But also the main point they came to tell us was about self-defense. Now listen, this argument is based on a flawed understanding of the right to law. You see, the right to life is not an absolute right. The right to life does not allow individuals to just use any means necessary to defend themselves. The use of self-defense must be proportionate to the threat. If we allow individuals to use this, it might violate the rights of others, but most importantly, undermine the rule of law. But most importantly, they try to tell you about effective regularizations. The truth of the matter is that even if we don't want to contend to this, right, the current issues with corruption and inefficiencies in various sectors in Nigeria will not allow these regulations to work, because you will need effective collaboration between different agencies that will ensure proper monitoring and deployment of these firearms. This cannot work. Just take, for example, the firearm law, the electoral law that was deployed. They made this law to be able to enhance electoral law, but the implementation was poor. The truth is that theory doesn't lead to practical implementation. But more to that, we tell you that arming individuals does not solve the root issue of insecurity in Nigeria, because that is what we are focusing on. How do we do this? We do this by actually solving what causes insecurity, which is poverty, and we do this by putting policies in place that can address this. Take, for example, Rwanda. In 1998, they had high insecurity in the country. They had high insecurity in the country, and to combat this, they didn't arm individuals. They solved the root cause of the issue. And as a result of that, according to the World Bank, it was that between 2002 to 2019, their GDP grew by 7.5%. By addressing the root cause of the issue, they were able to solve this. But the way we differ between our opposition team is between how do we solve this. We say that why is our alternative better than arming individuals? We say that we solve this on the short term and the long term. On the short term, we use the alternative, like my partner told you about state policing, because they can effectively combat this. And on the long term, we solve the root cause of the issue.
Thank you so much, Team Bayes University. Interesting submissions in support and in opposition of the motion. In achieving lasting security in Nigeria, individuals should be allowed to bear firearms. I think that the judges have once again been given a very, very serious task of finding out who wins this round. I'll now open the floor for the 30 seconds cross-examination rounds for both parties, starting from the representative of Obafemi Awolowo University. Obafemi Awolowo University, you have the floor, and you have 30 seconds.
First clarification, we already mentioned that we will be specifying only personal firearms would necessarily be allowed, and we also detest the illegal importation of guns. But then, we tell you that these law enforcement agencies, we also want them to work on our own side of the house. The only problem is we need an urgent solution, and we propose an urgent solution. State policing on your own side is not assured of the solutions that you are trying to peg to it. So please explain further.
So the question to the opposition is this. How do you ensure that individuals who are allowed to bear these firearms will not use it for illegal cases or like terrorism purposes? As we currently see that Nigeria has a large number of illicit firearms in the country. We tell you why state policing is a more effective solution, because you talked about the community problems. When you use state policing, you can be able to have individuals recruited to the police force who can give the police good information to tackle these problems. Now, the reason why the police force is not effective is because they're under a federal system. When we advocate for state policing, we can tackle this issue right now because we want a lasting solution to security problems in Nigeria.
Thank you. I'll now call on the representative of the Obafemi Awolowo University for their closing argument.
All right, so you asked if the state policing, I don't really get that essentially, but I'll respond. The thing is that the people that are in the state policing are also in the federal policing, and this is clear to us. We are currently in this system, and this is what we've been experiencing. One of the opposition members said that we will continue to live in fear, and the fear will be increased. But the truth is that we are already living in fear, and that is why firearms should be allowed. Again, you said not allowing people to use firearms could lead to fire people they could abuse it. But I already told you that by allowing them to use firearms, that is the only way we could ensure that they are accountable, because there will be laws in place. But when it's illegalized, there is nobody to be held responsible because the policies are not in place. And lastly, one thing we also make you understand is that granting people access to firearms is not based on their economic status or social status. It is based on the trainings like screening and mental health stability that they've gone through. Finally, the Nigeria we want is one where I can go to school without the fear of being kidnapped. You can move freely without fear or rape. And we all can go to our workplaces with assured safety. Thank you.
Team Bayes, you have 1 minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, our argument today has not been to tell you that state policing or one thing is the only way you can solve these issues. We are looking at different things. We are saying more fundamentally, liberalizing firearms will make it more difficult for the police to distinguish the criminals from genuine gun owners on the road. We should be arguing for those who are charged with the responsibility of actually securing and protecting our lives to be able to bear more firearms and be more dutiful and diligent in carrying out their responsibilities, not to allow individuals to bear firearms. firearms. We must pray against the day that you have to feel that you can be shot at any moment just because you have access to a firearm. Individuals should not be allowed to bear firearms. Well-trained law enforcement agencies must be empowered and not weapons to individuals. Thank you.
Judges, we've heard arguments from both parties for the final round of the quarterfinal stage of the Youth Leadership Debates competition. I think I'll allow the judges to give their feedback to this round, after which we'll go on a short music break to allow the judges properly collate the scores from round 1 to the final rounds. And I'll also ask the senior program officer from Leap Africa to support the judges with collating their scores during the break. So for now, judges, you have the floor. Your observations. Thank you.
All right. I think that was a very interesting conversation. Let's put our hands together for them again. So I'll start from one of the speakers. You cited statistics on domestic violence. I think starting with that wasn't really good because we're talking about security mainly. Yes, I know that domestic violence kind of comes under security, but we're looking at security generally. So that wasn't really relevant. It wasn't good that you started with that. You could have brought it up later and brought up statistics on security, national security mainly. Then I also liked how one of the speakers cited statistics from, used an example from South Africa, talking about how the withdrawal of firearms led to improved security. So you were able to also counter the point of your opponent well with that. So I think those are the two comments I would make. I'll hand over to Mike.
All right, thank you. As a retired debater myself, I must say that this round of debaters are fantastic. Can you give yourselves a round of applause? I enjoyed the arguments, especially from this last round, very factual, very intense, and you gave really nice points. He has already said some of the things I would say, but somebody was trying to make allusion to terrorized areas and said, terrorized areas such as the northern Nigeria. As debaters, we should be careful of painting a picture, understanding that this is on YouTube. Somebody from Australia might be watching, and then you are saying that terrorized areas such as northern Nigeria, creating an image of northern Nigeria as a terrorized area, while in fact, it is just some parts of northern Nigeria that are terrorized. So please, let's make sure that we're always aware of that. Rebuttals on this round was fantastic. Somebody mentioned Switzerland, and somebody else came back to say, oh, Switzerland with this fact. I think this was the best rebuttal round that I found, with them coming back to say, you made this point with this fact. I am coming back with this fact to make my own point. I think that was very intelligent. Thank you, guys, and I wish you the very best in your public speaking career, and I can't wait to see most of you on the world stages because you are world class. Thank you.
Yeah, and to also add to what my fellow judge has rightly said, I think it shouldn't stop here, whether you made it to or you make it to the next round. Let's see a continuous, session where you even take it back to your schools and, encourage and train others from what you've actually, learned on this training and or this process. And I think my fellow colleagues has rightly said everything. The only thing I would just like to say is that when there is no evidence, you continue to, explain tire. So please let us make sure we have evidence in everything we are doing. Thank you so much, and I wish you guys good luck.
Thank you so much to our incredible panel of judges. I do not know now if you have your scores, but we'll go on a very, very short break, a 1-minute one. Please, I would like to call on Joy, the Senior Program Officer from Leap Africa, to support the judges. Just a short music break, DJ 1 minute, so that we collate the scores and come back. We we have spent a good deal of time here.
Debate is a program that provides the platform for young people to use their voices and knowledge to drive conversations for national development. It is an initiative of the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, NYFF, implemented by Leap Africa in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. The 2022 Youth Leadership Debates also aims to give confidence to the voice of young people and leveraging on it as an effective tool to cause a transformed Nigeria. Its goal is to provide capacity building to young people across tertiary institutions and support them to critically evaluate information, advocate from the point of knowledge, and to collectively shape their future of Nigeria. The conversations led on the platform of the Youth Leadership Debate goes on to equip the contestants with needed knowledge to be active citizens leading a change. The NSAS protest of 2020 showed that young people can speak with one voice and cause a change. The Sorosoke movement, which means to speak up in Yoruba language, a ripple effect of young Nigerians' resistance to police brutality through the NSAS protest, was an eye-opener for government, the youth, and development agencies. Now, while it is important to encourage young people to Sorosoke, they must be guided to do it the right way. More so, institutions of higher learning have a leading role in providing solutions to the myriad of challenges facing society, cutting-edge research and innovative activities. Universities are places where young people are equipped to engage in intellectual debates that have national relevance and to provide solutions to socio-economic issues. So, Leap Africa, through the Youth Leadership Development Programs, build the capacity of young Nigerians in leadership and active participation in the nation's affairs, helping to shape the country's future for long-term development.
I am inviting you to the Social Innovators Program and Award Ceremony this year. It's the special edition because it's the 10th time we're celebrating and showcasing young innovators in Africa, not just Nigeria. So you have to be there. The theme this year is maximizing Africa's potential through disruptive leadership and innovation. Look, young people are coming up with innovations. Young people are transforming their communities and taking responsibility because they are taking action now. You can be part of those young people. Come and learn. We have quite a number of interesting partners who are coming on board because where something good is happening, I mean, you're always going to find that there's a lot of attention there. It's happening in Abuja this time. So if you're anywhere in Abuja, make sure you are at the Abuja Continental on the 26th and 27th of October. Don't miss it. If you are one of those entrepreneurs who's doing great stuff in your community and you have the right systems and structures, or you've even been part of the Social Innovators Program in the past, then I'm inviting you to this. If you are not and you've never interacted with us, this is a great time to have that experience with Leap Africa. So we invite you to join us October 26th and 27th. We'll have some workshops, we'll have breakout rooms, we'll have some incredible speakers that you could interact with, you could learn from, and it's not about just bringing people into the room and leaving. We want to ensure that we give you the kind of support that you need beyond the event. So see you at SIPA 2023.
We were often told a lie growing up that we're leaders of tomorrow. And as I went through my 20s, I realized that the people who told me I was a leader were still leading in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, or should we say ruling. So the issues that plague Africa are still the issues that plagued Africa 20 years ago when we started.
Africa as a continent has been known as an emerging market, and you can't separate the opportunities from the young people.
And we can only develop if young people are empowered and equipped to have the space to express their brilliance and passion.
And if you look at the innovations, the new ideas, the creativity, you see that the young people are the ones who are really leading the way.
There are many bright spots, and where you see those bright spots in Africa, they're really linked to effective, committed, and dynamic leadership. Young people are agents of change, and that's the vision we have.
Relax, relax. Tell your neighbor, relax. It's not that serious. It's just a competition. It's just a competition. You win some, you lose some. That doesn't make you a winner or a loser. It's just a step in your public speaking career, and I want you to take it as that. Okay. For round one debate between Veritas University and the University of Ibadan, Veritas University has an average of 15.3 marks. A round of applause for the speakers. While the University of Ibadan has an average of 17.3 points, which means the University of Ibadan makes it to the next round. For the round between the University of Lagos and the University of Benin, the University of Lagos has an average of 15.3 points, while the University of Benin has an average of 14.8 points. Very close, right? Well done, guys. But the University of Lagos makes it to the next round. Why are they saying that? Okay. Between the University of Ilorin and Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, the University of Ilorin has 13.8 points. And Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University has an average of 12.8 points. So you see it's very close. The winner is the University of Ilorin, who will be moving to the next round. For the debate between the Obafemi Awolowo University and the Bayes University Abuja, I would say that this was a keenly contested debate because the winner just won by a few points. Obafemi Awolowo University has 15.6 as the average, while Bayes University Abuja has 15.83, which makes Bayes University the school that makes it to the next round. Well done, guys. We are proud of you. And most importantly, apart from here, we want to see you on other stages and making a difference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barrister Oluwaseun. And congratulations to our semi-finalists. Audience, how do you feel? It's mixed feelings in the hall here. As the points have just been announced, we now know who our semi-finalists are. Please, madam, if you do not mind. Thank you very much. For the sake of clarity, I'd like to call out our semi-finalists for the Youth Leadership Debates competition. And please, when your team is mentioned, please, you can stand up, do a wave to the audience if you want, before we step out of the hall today. For round one, the University of Ibadan. Team University of Ibadan. The University of Lagos. The University of Ilorin. Bayes University. Oh, the Bayes University team are very humble. Congratulations, everybody. Thank you so much to our audience who have stayed up until this point. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you coming out, even though it's a public holiday here in Nigeria. And to the judges, we are so very grateful to you for being here and for making our time to be with us and for lending your voice. We want to hope that these conversations that have been started here will spur us to continue to search and to advocate for the Nigeria that we want. We'll continue to speak up when we see issues going wrong. We'll continue to speak up for policy issues that affect young people, marginalized people, and Nigerians at large. I'd like to yield the floor to my colleague and my senior, Mrs. Joy Amanabo, to give us the closing remarks as we close out for today. Joy, you have the floor.
This has been such an engaging one, really insightful conversations, and I must say kudos to all of the debaters who debated here this afternoon. It's been amazing. A round of applause for yourselves one more time. Thank you so much for our audience live here and even our audience watching us virtually, and special thanks to our judges as well for doing an amazing work this afternoon. Thank you so much. And this is us just giving general thanks to everyone who has supported us so far. Like Ijoma already mentioned, we're currently live at Lagos State University, and so a big thank you to the administration for giving us an opportunity to be here, the Student Union government as well, and even the Sustainable Development Group, Sustainable Development Goals, SDG Club and Center, for also being here, supporting us and cheering us on. Thank you so much. And big thank you to our partners as well, working with us. We have Future Work Africa Project. Thank you so much for your support. We also want to thank our funders who have supported us and brought us this far, MacArthur Foundation and Ford Foundation. Thank you so much. Without you all, we won't be doing what we're currently doing, and just awakening young voices to speak on issues that affect all of us. You'll agree with me that all of what we've discussed today are things that affect us all. And super thanks for your help, for your support so far. And so this is us calling it a nice one this afternoon, and just closing out the curtains here today. Would say, please join us tomorrow. We have the semi-finals and youth conference happening live here on campus, Lagos State University. And of course, we have the virtual option, even for our audience back at home. Do well to join us live tomorrow at 11 a.m. It's going to be another blast. We can't wait for it. Thank you once again. And this is it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joy. And thank you, everybody. We can all leave. And please, everybody, give a round of applause to yourselves. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
There's a huge innovation gap on the continent. You have young people who are talented and largely driven by passion, who go into starting enterprises without the requisite skills, knowledge, resources, relationships to be able to take them sustainably.
We couldn't sustain the programs we did. We lacked financial capacity.
It was just at the point where I was almost going to stop the idea.
The SIP Social Innovators Program was designed so that we can bridge that gap. We can fill that gap of capacity.
Indirectly, when they invested in me as a young person, they've invested in the over 11,000 plus women that we've been able to empower.
We're able to provide relief materials to over 3,000 inmates.
For just the last 3 years, after being a LEAP fellow, we are able to achieve that goal to the highest level I can think about.
There's a huge innovation gap on the continent. You have young people who are talented and largely driven by passion, who go into starting enterprises without the requisite skills, knowledge, resources, relationships to be able to take them sustainably.
We couldn't sustain the programs we did. We lacked financial capacity.
It was just at the point where I was almost going to stop the idea.
The SIP Social Innovators Program was designed so that we can bridge that gap. We can fill that gap of capacity.
Indirectly, when they invested in me as a young person, they've invested in the over 11,000 plus women that we've been able to empower.
We're able to provide relief materials to over 3,000 inmates.
For just the last 3 years, after being a LEAP fellow, we are able to achieve that goal to the highest level I can think about.
There's a huge innovation gap on the continent. You have young people who are talented and largely driven by passion, who go into starting enterprises without the requisite skills, knowledge, resources, relationships to be able to take them sustainably.
We couldn't sustain the programs we did. We lacked financial capacity.
It was just at the point where I was almost going to stop the idea.
The SIP Social Innovators Program was designed so that we can bridge that gap. We can fill that gap of capacity.
Indirectly, when they invested in me as a young person, they've invested in the over 11,000 plus women that we've been able to empower.
We're able to provide relief materials to over 3,000 inmates.
For just the last 3 years, after being a LEAP fellow, we are able to achieve that goal to the highest level I can think about.
There's a huge innovation gap on the continent. You have young people who are talented and largely driven by passion, who go into starting enterprises without the requisite skills, knowledge, resources, relationships to be able to take them sustainably.
We couldn't sustain the programs we did. We lacked financial capacity.
It was just at the point where I was almost going to stop the idea.
The SIP Social Innovators Program was designed so that we can bridge that gap. We can fill that gap of capacity.
Indirectly, when they invested in me as a young person, they've invested in the over 11,000 plus women that we've been able to empower.
We're able to provide relief materials to over 3,000 inmates.
For just the last 3 years, after being a LEAP fellow, we are able to achieve that goal to the highest level I can think about.
There's a huge innovation gap on the continent. You have young people who are talented and largely driven by passion, who go into starting enterprises without the requisite skills, knowledge, resources, relationships to be able to take them sustainably.
We couldn't sustain the programs we did. We lacked financial capacity.
It was just at the point where I was almost going to stop the idea.
The SIP Social Innovators Program was designed so that we can bridge that gap. We can fill that gap of capacity.
Indirectly, when they invested in me as a young person, they've invested in the over 11,000 plus women that we've been able to empower.
We're able to provide relief materials to over 3,000 inmates.
For just the last 3 years, after being a LEAP